Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. Y'all know I'm your humble host, the Y'all Mean the Revolution. And the Mexican cartels, they won't walk. They are planting explosives. They shooting their border guards. They won't walk with the U.S. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Now, before I get into this message, as I was loading this live up, I just seen a video that people talking about from Uncle Shoe Shining, Buck Dancing Luke. I'm going to be dealing with Uncle Luke tomorrow in a video. But Uncle Luke pissed me off so bad, I started not to run this live. I started to go do a video and then get with y'all. But I said, I got this live going. Disrespecting foundational Black Americans. I guess he's saying slave. He's talking about it like we coons or something. Disrespecting Tariq Nasheed. This is why I want to we're going to get into this topic. But I want to let Uncle Luke know something. That he a buck dancing house nigga who never brought nothing to the table except extorting, using young women, manipulating young women, trafficking these young women. But we're going to be dealing with. I just want to let him know because Uncle Luke must have in his head that he's some type of gangster. Nigga, your muscle stop where the Haitians stop, bro. You had some muscle in Miami because the Haitians was in Miami and you're a whole ass nigga who allowed them to extort people and jump on people. Uncle Luke, you not that tough, bro. You not that tough, Uncle Luke. You stepping in and out by disrespecting us like that. I'm really upset about it because when I get upset, I want to put my hands and feet on people. But I see how they gonna go at Tariq because Tariq not aggressive. But y'all keep disrespecting Tariq. You ain't just got to worry about Tariq. That's serious business. I'm gonna get to this live, but he pissed me off so much I had to rant rave at this beginning. Just let Uncle Luke know something. You're gonna run into some of us, bro, and you're gonna regret thinking that you was tough, bro, because you're not tough, my nigga. And once again, this car figure, yo, little bullshit muscle, that shit in Miami, bro. We don't respect you in Texas, bro. We don't think you tough, fam. And you can't come around here disrespecting us. You getting too cute, you sex trafficker. What the fuck did Uncle Luke do for our culture except manipulate women? I'm like, who the fuck is this nigga but a horn-ass nigga who's manipulating women? What else did he do? Nothing. But I'm finna go on my program. I just want to rant rave. Uncle Luke, you got a whole video coming in the morning, bro. And I swear to go to my mom. I can't, because you're not going to stop because they paying you to do this. Keep disrespecting us, bro. And I can guarantee you show us shit stink. Somebody going to making a video about Uncle Luke getting the shit whipped out of him. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I know it's going to happen. Come on, put that energy out there, bro. Keep disrespecting us, Luke. Let me get to this shit. But fuck Uncle Luke. He keep on disrespecting us. Tariq is a good dude, but he not me. I will bump into these clowns, bro, who think they're going to keep disrespecting us, man. That's on my mom. And we're going to get some revolutionary straightening with perverts like Luke. Let's get to this.
For people traveling back and forth from Mexico, officials say cartel members near Brownsville have been placing explosives along the roadway. The News 4 I-Team's Jordan Elder found out who they're targeting and why officials in both countries are urging you to be careful.
Bro, and get my spirit back right, because that pissed me off when I seen him disrespecting us, bro. Disrespecting everybody, calling us coons. And I'm like, nigga, who you think you talking to, old man? You better correct yourself, boy. But anyway, what we here for is the cartel. I just not seen that. That's why I'm pissed. But the Mexican drug cartel, let's get to today's discussion. I'll deal with that clown. Let me get my spirit back right. The Mexican drug cartels are planting explosives around the border, and they are shooting at the border guards, The CIA not finna let all of their puppets. Remember, there's a lot of people over here who is trafficking and kidnapping. It's a lot of billion-dollar black market business that Trump is fucking up by kicking all of those narco traffickers and hitmen. A lot of hitmen is getting caught up in that sweep too.
An urgent warning for people traveling back and forth from Mexico. Officials say cartel members near Brownsville have been placing explosives along the roadway. The News 4 I-Team's Jordan Elder found out who they're targeting and why officials in both countries are urging you to be careful.
Don't touch, don't move, don't manipulate. Residents in Tamaulipas, which is across the border from Brownsville, woke up to a...
This should be all over the major news stations. They're not running this, but they're going to show you why. They don't want us to know that the cartel say ain't nobody leaving America. We're going to put explosives all over the border. We're going to shoot at the border guards. Y'all is the terrorists that Trump said y'all was. And we do need to attack y'all like we attack ISIS and Al-Qaeda. That's going to be great for the black community, war with the cartel. But guess what? A bunch of house niggas like Luke and niggas like him, they're going to try to go against us and work for the cartel. But guess what? Their ass going to get dealt with.
A concerning message. Cartels
Luke
are placing
family,
explosives like these
we want
along
war
the
with
roads.
the cartel.
It's a shame that those are images I thought I left behind in the combat zone in Iraq and Afghanistan. And now I never in a million years really thought that we would be seeing that so close to home.
Patricia Driscoll grew up along the border, later serving as a military contractor.
People who are from there, we don't think of our Mexican border as a war zone, and we don't want to.
She says this message is alarming for people in border cities who cross back and forth every day.
People thinking, well, I'm just commuting to work. I'm just commuting to see my family. And now I have to worry about terrorist-like devices.
This is a 24-hour command center that we have here in the border on the U.S. side.
Security experts like Jorge Luis Cisneros are watching these threats closely. His company provides protection for companies in the U.S. and Mexico.
The cartels are fighting each other, but they're not looking to hurt Americans or any travelers that are foreigners.
That's a lie. See,
Some are
this
still
dude works
worried
for the cartel. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? So they said his name, Jose Luis Cisneros. Oh, wait a minute. Who? No, the cartels, they don't want to hurt Americans. Are you fucking crazy? Why the fuck they been killing Americans all these years? I know a lot of people, the cartels killed them because they ran off on the plugs. And then some people wanted out the game. You know the cartels don't be letting them boys get out the game like that, huh? Oh, no, you made too much money for you. They were to kill you and put your partner in power. But this dude said the cartel never hurt nobody. What about all the black people who've been down there fentanyl y'all been pushing over here? What is he talking about? Come on, you think I don't know what the cartel put green lights on them black families in California? I did a whole live about that. The cartel back in the Mexican prison gangs putting green lights on black people trying to take over those neighborhoods in California. Back in their murderous play, any black person was getting hit. You're not part of no gang. All you got to do is be black.
This could be retaliation or a warning. President Trump signing an executive order this week designating drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
I'm not sure that it changes their behaviors anymore, but it is definitely time for them to see that the United States is not going to allow it to continue business as usual.
Long-term violence could have big impacts on the economies of both countries.
Millions and millions of dollars that are coming back and forth, and we have to protect the people that are involved or working there. You know.
Congressman Tony Gonzalez represents several of those border cities. He tells us action is being taken to curtail cartel activity. Quote, Mexico needs to play a vital role in this, and current interactions between the United States and Mexico's government officials are rooted in improving safety and security initiatives across the board. So far, there haven't been major threats in cities like El Paso, Eagle Pass, or Del Rio, but as tensions rise, officials are urging travelers to be careful. Jordan Elder, News 4 San Antonio.
They need to take one person by one person and investigate it. And if they are bad, then take them out. But most of them, they are good people.
I was one of the people who took part in a protest on the South Side earlier this evening. They say they aren't happy with the Trump mass deportations of undocumented immigrants. This is what White House border czar Tom Homan told ABC News this morning.
It's not okay to violate laws in this country. We have millions of people standing in line, taking the test, doing their background investigation, paying the fees that want to come in the right way.
ICE agents are now able to enter churches and schools to arrest migrants who are suspected of being in the country illegally. That is causing uproar from some locals. News 4 San Antonio's Phil Sterling has more on how they're responding to the news.
The San Fernando Cathedral, like many other churches around the nation, is filled with people on a Sunday afternoon. But now they could see federal arrests take place in their place of worship. That's causing people like Alberto Riz to feel uneasy.
I thought the church was sacred, you know.
Churches used to be considered sensitive areas during the Biden administration, but since President Trump retook the Oval Office, that has changed. Ruse says he understands the country needs to protect its borders, but also feels sorry for those looking for a better life.
It seems like every 4 years we have something that changes.
A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson released a statement saying criminals will no longer be able to use America's schools or churches to avoid arrest. They say the Trump administration won't tie law enforcement's hands and trusts them to use common sense. In an interview with ABC, border czar Tom Homan says this is nothing new.
Name another agency, another law enforcement agency that has those type of requirements that they can't walk into a school or doctor's office or a medical campus. No other agencies have those standards.
Bexar County Sheriff Javier Salazar says his office has not yet been asked to participate in any sort of federal operations.
So I can tell you, I have no interest in going into jails and or schools and churches to pursue people. Now, if a violent crime takes us to a church or a school, that's something different.
The Archdiocese of San Antonio shared a statement by the Texas Catholic Conference of Bishops saying, quote, "The bishops of Texas will continue to work with governmental officials and other people of goodwill to implement policies that recognize the dignity of every person, prioritize family unity, and address the root cause of forced migration, while respecting the right and responsibility of our country to secure its borders, regulate immigration in an orderly process."
All these laws, all these lies these churches are telling, all these Democrat churches, they lies, they swindlers. The root cause is imperialism. Why are you steady ruining these people's countries? See, they don't want to say that. See, they're imperialists. The congressional black Greek freaks, they don't want to be anti-imperialist. They don't want to say the U.S. empire is trying to steal these people's resources. You know, oh, how poor these people are. These people are plenty of resources, man. We're trying to steal their shit and force them to come here. Then we get less. And then big business get more. See, they don't want to talk about no root cause. Nobody want to talk about the imperialism that has these people leave these countries.
Maintain the rule of law and keep its communities safe and peaceful. Reis says that he understands.
And I'm tired of people saying Mexico is a poor nation. That's a fucking lie. Who told you that lie? Mexico is not a poor nation. Mexico is a rich nation. Mexico is a rich nation. Poor compared to what? The U.S.? Mexico is not a poor nation. Mexico has plenty of resources. That's serious goddamn business, man. Everybody could be, all these Spanish-speaking people, they could be making more and doing big things in Mexico. Mexico is gaining a bunch of prestige in the motherfucking world, and people still want to pretend like Mexico is some peasant nation. That is a scam and a hustle.
We're going through a change at this time, and it can be hard on all of us, but thinks there has to be a better way to secure the country. Reporting in the studio, Phil Sterling, News 4, San Antonio.
All right, thanks, Phil, for that information. Governor Greg Abbott is reacting to the deportations tonight. He posted a few hours ago on X saying, quote, "Texas Department of Public Safety troopers and special agents are deployed to assist President Trump's Homeland Security investigations in removing undocumented immigrants." He also said DPS operations will expand in the coming days. A U.S. Senate investigation of a migrant child's death in 2023 finds poor health care at border facilities.
Within the last hour, Border Patrol agents near Fronton, Texas, were fired upon from Mexico by suspected cartel gunmen as a group of illegal aliens were being brought across the river. I'm told that Border Patrol returned fire. Nobody hit on either side right there. And we are going to continue on with this as Texas DPS tells Bill Malusian that they are now patrolling the area and has a drone in the air and can see Mexican military assets now staging on the other side of the river there.
Oh,
So
yeah,
again, we
cartel.
are going to be following this story here for you on Live Now from Fox. It is very fluid at this moment, but this comes at a time
Mexican military got me fucked up. They the cartel too, bro.
when big changes are happening at the White House when it comes to border security, and a lot of these measures are taking place pretty much on a daily basis. We're also seeing mass deportations happening really now every day, as just yesterday, more than 900 people were picked up from major cities, from Boston to Los Angeles as well. And we were bringing that to you, just some of the many arrests that were happening yesterday, including an ISIS member that was accused there of crossing the border illegal as well. So again,
What?
some major disturbance.
ISIS been, but they what? Huh? And the people that think Trump, yeah, ISIS. You heard of them? You know who they are? That's the real ISIS. You see, that's the real ISIS. That's not the fake ISIS who struck in New Orleans. That's the dude got caught at the border. Oh yeah, that's the real deal. That's the real head chopper. See what this good work is doing?
Disturbances though happening on the border. There's gunshots reportedly fired at U.S. Border Patrol agents. They are investigating right now, and we will keep an eye on this developing story for you all right here on Live Now from Fox.
See what happened? When you capture ISIS and all they hitmen and narco traffickers, they start shooting at you and planting bombs. Oh, this is war. This is war. You know what I'm saying? I'm finna deputize. Everybody in this chat, you being deputized. Y'all are being deputized to protect y'all country. Cause this is definitely disgusting, man. You know, just to think that these people would shoot. That these people would actually have the nerve to shoot at our border guards. Okay.
They're hibernating right now. It's also cold, the windy city. It's winter time. It's super brisk, right? Oh yeah, ghost towns could be for a couple of reasons, but obviously we know, right? A Chicago neighborhood turned into a ghost town amid deportations. Guys, this is a suggestion via a channel member. Let's go and check this video out immediately. Let's do it, guys.
Promises made, promises kept, with President Trump taking immediate action on his top campaign focus, fighting illegal immigration. From coast to coast, ICE agents going city to city, sometimes door to door, tracking down the nearly 1.5 million undocumented set for deportation. And as ICE closes in on migrants, once vibrant Chicago neighborhoods are now turning into ghost towns. And tonight we are taking you to a neighborhood that has gone silent.
All right, let's go. What side of town?
Well, like I said from day one, no one's
vibrant neighborhoods. That ain't what the people in Chicago was saying. They was calling them crime infested, man. Huh? Just like I just said, vibrant neighborhood. That's disgusting.
off the table.
The Trump administration setting out to execute what it has promised.
We arrested 1,300 people. Over 1,000 of them were criminals.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement operations.
And then the others are just basically collateral.
Reportedly underway in jurisdictions all across the nation. Federal agents have been spotted in many sanctuary cities carrying out these operations.
I hope the sanctuary cities come around.
The usually bustling and vibrant streets of this Hispanic neighborhood in Chicago sit relatively empty because of the concerns over ICE.
Welcome to Mesquite Restaurant, sir.
This little taqueria, like most in the Pilsen neighborhood, is owned and operated by immigrants. The Cruz family, who in 1994 made the long journey from Mexico City to Chicago to grow their little taco stand into a
disgusting propaganda, man. This is bullshit. This not gonna work, small hats. We know y'all own these motherfucking news stations. Disgusting propaganda. Cartels shake these people down. This immigrant got to pay the. That's a fucking fact. Now I'm gonna investigate all. These immigrants got to pay the cartel just to be okay in their neighborhood, just like the Italians. Just like the Italians. It's disgusting. Oh, this family who's been here, they're now being targeted. Yeah, by the cartels. What's wrong with you?
A thriving restaurant.
We got tacos. We got breakfast, chilaquiles.
This American dream is one thousands of migrants are striving for when they cross the southern border.
Okay.
But the drastic shutdown of illegal immigration is a campaign promise the majority of American voters are expecting Donald Trump to make good on.
Honest to you, when he come back again, I was like, man, I feel scared.
President Trump.
What are you scared about, bro? The thing about it is, this guy here, I'm guessing he is completely legal. He owns a business, or he's part of a family business. His parents are legal. This is a legal business. I don't understand the issue here. What are you actually afraid of here? You're not the target, bro. Right? Either way.
Border czar Tom Homan and the highest ranking members of Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
He's scared for all of the people he helped smuggle into Chicago. You see? All the people he told, hey, it's good over here. You can come over here now. He's scared for them. He know what he did. It's a fucking coyote.
Say they're only targeting violent criminals during these initial deportations. News Nation has seen what these operations look like. I rode along and conducted early morning raids with ICE agents when they arrested men from Iraq and Belize, convicted criminals who spent prison time for robbery and gun charges.
Wow.
I'm not a criminal. I'm a good guy. I pay my taxes. I do everything right. You know what's going to happen to me? They're going to grab me too. You know? They're not going to check right now.
We've seen examples.
That is intriguing, actually. But then I would hope that you would sue, because if you're, again, bro, if you're a citizen, legal resident completely, then and you're being targeted, you could be, in fact, considered collateral. If
they want us to do nothing. See, this is the fucking problem. They want us to do nothing. Well, what about you're the good guy? What about the millions of bad guys? What are you supposed to do about them? What are you supposed to do about them, good guy? You the good guy. But it's a bunch of bad guys in your fucking neighborhood. You didn't turn on me. You didn't. Hey, I tell you what. Why you not with the ICE? Oh, I can't do that to my people. Yeah, you helped a lot of them get in there. This shit here, not gonna work. And it's a bunch of motherfucking black people. They don't disagree with this shit. Are you nuts? Because you wanna know why? Every single last one of these people, all I gotta do is say, what country you from? Then if I go to your country, fuck no, you're not gonna be able to come up and be outshining them. Your ass is gonna get it. You understand that? You don't accept your place. All right, we understand. That's how it goes. In the circle of life. You know, this survival of the fittest. We got to wake up. Your ass going absolutely, you're going to be at the bottom of the bottom. And a lot of us have woke up and realized that.
If that was the case here, if they are exclusively going off of, I guess, depending on what they're going off of, right? It seems like they're directly targeting individuals. And if you are around said individual, then you are, in fact, going to be considered collateral, right? Regardless of whatever. Are they going to check immediately? That's actually a really good point that he made here. Actually, he could be swept up into something that he doesn't deserve to be swept up into, in that context, at least. But that just means he's going to be paid for the rest of his life, because if that was me, that's exactly what I would do.
Examples of resistance throughout Hispanic neighborhoods, including these signs instructing immigrant men and women to push back and block federal agents from entering their homes. But the reality is, new polling shows 65% of Americans strongly support deporting immigrants convicted of violent crimes. That includes Horatio Aguirre, an
That should be a lot higher.
and Mexican-American police officer. He voted for Trump and wants mass deportations of criminals to carry on as quickly as possible.
A lot of Hispanic Americans, there was also a rise that voted for Trump. I think 9 out of 10 people that are living here in America, Chicago, Illinois, are going to agree that if you're an illegal resident and you are arrested for committing a crime, prosecuted for committing a crime, and you are an illegal resident, you are subject to deportation.
The so-called mass deportations have not been carried out in Chicago like people once believed. But that hasn't stopped local and state leaders from sounding the alarm and strengthening local codes which reinforce the city's sanctuary status.
We should stand up for them. That is the right thing to do.
This guy flip-flops so much, bro. It is crazy. This man just said recently,
It's a small head.
if you committed a crime and you're here waiting for some type of paperwork, then you have to leave immediately. That's not how we want things in Illinois. And now he's sitting here like, we're going to strengthen sanctuary city. Bro, what are you talking about?
But he's trying to tear things down.
Governor, what's your response to people who might say that Democrats are the one sowing chaos, confusion, and fear-mongering when talking about mass deportations that haven't even happened in Chicago?
What are you talking about? They are literally threatening people all across the country. How can you say that we're overreacting somehow? We're not.
The Trump administration is vowing to investigate and prosecute local and state officials who stand in the way of what the federal government is doing.
All right. I mean, listen, you're nicer than me because, again, if I was actually in power, if you are not listening to what the federal government is actually, in fact, requiring, as in the majority of the United States of America voted for something, and you specifically, governor, in random state, are going to go against my wishes and the wishes of the United States citizens, then I do think that you should no longer have federal funding to your state. I'm terrible, bro. Don't make me president. Don't do that. I promise you, I'll be bad.
Natasha.
Yeah, Alex, with that tonight. Thank you. Thanks for watching.
Oh, that's it. Huh, okay, guys. I want to go ahead and talk about this here for a second. So I have immigrated to two separate countries outside of the United States of America, where I am still a permanent resident of Spain still. And I no longer have permanent residency in South Korea. But here's the thing. Immigration is rough, okay? I know it. Trust me when I say it. I don't have a criminal record here, guys. All right. And so the thing about it is, if you did have one, I don't know how you could be able to move into anywhere. Like specifically, I guess I remember, I think Spain was harder than South Korea. South Korea is easy-ish, right? As long as you have like a solid record and things like that, right? And you don't owe the government crazy amounts of money and all those other things, stipulations. But Spain was definitely hard, bro. I'm glad I don't have traffic tickets. Like when I say that, like I'm like squeaky clean, bro, and unnaturally. And I spend a lot of time out of the United States of America. Like I remember a couple of years ago coming back to America for the first time after like staying out of America for like 7 years, and like just like getting my gun license back basically. And it took longer than it did a long time ago, and that was a lot because I've basically been a ghost for the last 7 years here in the United States of America. Right? So then when they run my information, they're just like, bro, what is going on here? Because a lot of the things here are like statute of limitation based, where they just basically, I guess, don't pop up any longer or something. And it's odd for someone to not even have a credit card open type of thing, or bank account open. Because I've moved everything to places that are better, let's say, for finances and things. Anyway, that's not the point here. But yeah, bro, like no criminal stuff, please. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make here. If no other country is really going to take you for being a criminal, why are we forced to? It's the bleeding heart left, right? It makes them feel good to do what they're doing and say what they say, right? If you want them to change it, they can't feel good. Like once they don't feel good any longer, once they can't basically put up a colored, image, let's say on Instagram or something like that, hashtag activism type of thing. Once they stop that, then they'll stop caring about this, and they'll be like, you know what we should do? We should definitely get criminals out of the country immediately. And specifically, if they've never paid any taxes, guys, come on, what are we even playing around with here? But either way, listen, you guys all have an absolutely amazing day. Enjoy your day thoroughly.
Moments ago, President Donald Trump says he has issued his first tariff on Colombia after 2 U.S. deportation flights of undocumented migrants were not allowed to land in Colombia.
Colombia, come get your people. That's right, come get your people, man. If you don't come get your people, we're gonna drop them off. And if you don't let us drop them off, we're gonna up the ante. And you know what? Bananas are good, but I think we can get some bananas from Argentina.
Yeah, Fred, just moments ago, Donald Trump reacting to the news that Colombia had blocked planes carrying undocumented migrants from delivering those individuals back to their home country, and Trump now retaliating with tariffs and threats of more tariffs. He said in a post on social media, quote, "I was just informed that the 2 repatriation flights from the United States with a large number of illegal criminals were not allowed to land in Colombia. This order was given by Colombia's socialist president, Gustavo Petro, who is already very unpopular amongst his people. Petro's denial of these flights has jeopardized the national security and public safety of the United States." So he has then goes on to say that he is taking some action against the Colombian government, including a 25% tariff on goods coming from Colombia immediately, and he's threatening to raise that to up to 50% next week. He also is calling for a travel ban and immediate visa revocations on the Colombian government officials and sanctions on party members and family members that support the Colombian government. So, Fred, this is an early example of how Donald Trump's immigration crackdown is already colliding with his foreign policy and trade proposals, and the first of maybe more to come, Fred.
Let's go to Scott Jennings.
Because the president of Colombia refused to accept a flight of migrants. He said he wouldn't take them. Donald Trump said, we're going to enter the F around and find out portion of this conversation. And he hit him with sanctions and tariffs. And now tonight, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, says Congress is going to back him up on that. He's putting Colombia, he's putting the rest of this hemisphere on notice that you are not dealing with the same president that you were. You're dealing with someone who is taking illegal immigration seriously. Now, within an hour of making that threat, the president of Colombia said, whoa, I'll send my own plane to pick these people up. So obviously, he got their attention. I don't think there's actually going to be any tariff war between the United States and Colombia, because as long as they come get their people, I doubt Donald Trump's going to end up tariffing them, and they won't tariff us. And they'll have learned a valuable lesson that Donald Trump is taking immigration, illegal immigration, seriously. This is real leadership, but it sends a message to everybody else in the hemisphere. Do not test us. This is not Biden and Harris. This is Trump and Vance. We mean business.
Before we go any further, guys, let me just enlighten folks a little bit. So my understanding is we got a plane full of Colombians, or people that came from Colombia, who were to be deported. We boarded them on a plane, a military plane, helicopter plane, to take them back to Colombia. And they got turned around when they got to Colombia. They said, no, you can't come here with these people. So they brought the people back, and Trump says, okay, you won't let us return your people. You don't want your people back. Not people from other places, your own people. He said, okay, fine, if you want to take your people back, what we're going to do is we're going to put tariffs on your ish. Yeah, anything that you export into our country, we're going to tariff you 25%. Seems like the Colombian president got his head right. He did the math and said, hey, maybe we should let our people come back. We'll come get them. So that's fun stuff. It's always fun.
Happened under Barack Obama, actually. He deported millions upon millions of people, and I don't have any recollection of the U.S. economy collapsing. And no Republican, and I don't think most Americans are taking seriously the argument that the U.S. economy is underpinned by violent, criminal, illegal immigrants. I mean, if our entire economy is underpinned by people who are rapists and murderers and commit other violent acts, then we got a whole other set of issues going on in the economy that we ought to talk about today. I mean, people just aren't buying that argument. So the populations that they are starting with are violent, criminal, illegal aliens. Then they also have 1.5 million people who have existing, fully adjudicated orders. And beyond that, I would just point out that if you came to this country illegally, you're already a criminal, illegal immigrant.
They want slaves, bro. They want these slaves. That's so disgusting what the Democrats trying to do in big business. These are hard workers who help the American economy. You want slaves? Slaves used to help the American economy too. Slaves used to help. They was the engine of the American economy. I mean, it's just so disgusting, the bullshit they coming up with. Like he said, man, they've been getting thousands of criminals off the street. ISIS was in there. These people don't give a shit. These people, and the most disgusting part is these illegals, they don't want these people nowhere near them except cutting their grass. Because these are workers for these bougie motherfuckers. A lot of black people use them too, but most black people still have to do that shit themselves, you know. Few y'all hire, laborers and shit like that. Some shit you can't do, cool. But to these bougie motherfuckers, see, nothing ever changed. That's in America. They went from having the slaves do it for free, then pay the illegals. Same operation, keep the business going, cheap labor, profits matter. They fighting hard in the motherfucker, and it's just disgusting for them to tell us these are the hardest workers they ever seen. Nobody wants to do the jobs these people are doing. And we were like, what the fuck are you talking about? Hell yeah, we want to get them jobs building houses and roads and schools and bridges. And what are you talking? They acting like all these people are doing is picking oranges and shit. That is a fucking lie, man. That's disgusting.
You've already broken our laws, even if you haven't been arrested yet or charged with it. If you're here illegally, if you broke our laws, then you're going to be targeted. Now, maybe you're not going to be a top priority today because there's other more dangerous people here, but we cannot send a message that, well, some illegal immigration is okay. And that's been the problem of the last 4 years. Basically, Biden and Harris were like, just get here and it'll probably work out for you. That is no longer the communication strategy of the U.S. government. The strategy is, don't try us. Whether you're the president of Colombia or somebody who just walked across the border illegally, do not try us. It is not going to work out for you.
Of course, the Democrats are going to say, hey.
In our community, all black people should be happy as shit. These black leaders, man, maybe we can get our communities back. These fucking traffickers got our communities on lock because they can put any puppet in power, bro. Flunk these people, send them some packs, and the bullshit, it continues. Nah, this is nonsense, and people need to you look at the fentanyl numbers. I did a live on this. It is outrageous amount of deaths in black communities right now. Now, what's so crazy? A lot of it is murder. These no good blackface Ku Klux Klan members, you can't show niggas anything. Now they learn how to kill their enemy using fentanyl, and the police dumbass not solving no crime. This is disgusting, bro. But a lot of people are getting addicted to all kinds of different drugs in our community. Black people, they die of this shit all over the country. Black people at an all-time high. Fentanyl. Once again, like back in the day, motherfuckers, you be like, man, we ain't got no boats. You ain't got no fentanyl labs, bro. This is disgusting, man.
Republicans, conservatives, Trump, MAGA, they're separating families. And people go, oh my God, forgetting that we do that every day to American citizens, every damn day. That's what we do. Every time you lock up somebody, I don't care what it is, jaywalking, didn't pay their taxes on time, stole a Snickers bar. It happens to Americans all the time. We ignore it when it happens to us. By the way, it's been happening to us for, I don't know, since we got our freedom papers. It's hard for me to act like the world is ending because maybe you're getting the same treatment we've been getting this whole entire time. And these people we talking about aren't even citizens.
Come on now.
Don't tell me they pay their taxes. How are you going to pay taxes with no social security number? You talking about when you buy gum. Okay, fine. That sales tax ain't the type of tax to put your ass in.
It's not just the point. The point is we love the world. We care about we such good people. We care about everybody. Try to help everybody get a little something. But it's the anti-black hate that comes from a lot of these individuals that really like, hold on, bro. I'm not finna sit here and stab. I'm not finna do this to myself. When I know how you really feeling about me and my people, why should I give a damn about your suffering, your well-being? They're gonna show you, well, what about the kids? What about their parents? What about their parents? See, but the problem is we don't woke up. We haven't enough ourselves. We love America. This all, like I say, this the only thing we got. We don't got nothing else, bro. These people have countries to go to. We don't have nowhere to get deported to. How about that? How about that? You should. We don't have nowhere to get deported to. At least these motherfuckers got somewhere they get shipped to, bro, to call home. Things can get better. They never know. New leader. But what us, we got to stay here and ride this shit out. We don't get to pack up and jump ship like a bunch of other motherfuckers that then came here leeching. Whatever color your leech ass was. Not us. We had to ride it out, fight like hell. And they still try to replace us with new people, civilians, right now in our fucking face. Joe Biden told our elders, them house niggas, I felt bad for them. He told them they gripes, they had to get with the Spanish-speaking community because they were going to outnumber us and then bring it to the American government. Everybody know that's true. You can still Google that shit. The Congressional Black Coons was so devastated that he told them that to their face. After they put him in the presidency, he looked at them and said, hey, we just can't focus on blacks. The Spanish-speaking population, that's where it's at. That's the new Democratic Party. He said that shit. And it all went to hell on his ass, nigga. But we can't forget what he said. And that if we wanted to get anything, we had to ask the fucking illegals. Man, he said that shit.
It's in jail, is it? I'm talking about the tax, the income tax. That's the tax that breaks your ass. So I'm talking about people that are illegally in the country paying taxes. When you're talking about when they bought something from Walmart. That ain't the type of tax that puts people behind bars if they skip it. You can skip paying Walmart. All you gotta do is do a 5-finger discount. Let's keep it a buck. Let's be real. Anyway, Scott Jennings is gonna be a problem for y'all. Democrats, Scott Jennings is a problem. They're gonna need to find a way. You have to find a solution. And I'm gonna tell you something. It's that Joy Reid. It's none of those guys from that podcast full of white guys. What their name is, Obama Bros. It ain't them. Yeah, I don't know. You're neutralizing. Who's going to neutralize Scott Jennings? But I haven't seen you with anybody who's able to have a command of the facts in such a way, the delivery of those facts. That's going to continue with Scott Jennings. Sir Michael Singleton is a quick number 2. He's good too. What's up, Michael? Sure, Michael. What's up, bro? Columbia, come get your people. That's right. Come get your people, man. If you don't come get your people, we're gonna drop them off. And if you don't let us drop them off, we're gonna up the ante. And you know what? Bananas are good, but I think we can get some bananas from Argentina. Argentina got some bananas. You know what I'm saying? Somebody else got bananas, don't they? Americans, one thing Americans do is consume. And I don't even think Trump wants the terms. He wants you to do what he wants you to do, okay? He don't want to put a term for you. He wants you to negotiate. Maybe, you know what I'm saying, you come pick your people up and you pay a fine. I don't know. But, hey, these your people. These your people. Make living arrangements for your people. We've been housing your people. Help us out. We house your people. I would love to go to my mailbox, look on my bank account and see I got a deposit, my refund for my tax dollars going to help people that are not citizens. I'd love to see that refund. This is America that's called black people welfare queens for 50 years. What are immigrants who come here illegally, who rely on the system for everything they get? What are they? What are they called? What's the word? Don't tell me everybody's at the Home Depot picking up work. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. Hell, in New York, they wouldn't even let the people get work permits. It meant the system sucks. We got people that were coming in, 800 people per day, and they didn't even have a way to get work permits. They wouldn't let them work because they say that's going to mess up the economy of the New York workers. I get that, but now that means you got to pay for them. And they don't have a way to make their own living because you wouldn't give them the right to work. So I like I'm not a fan of Eric Adams, but that's a rock between a hard place. You can't work. We can't let you starve. You got to be indoors. You are now our responsibility. You can sue us if you get hurt or sick or if you're unsafe. So, like, I don't think New Yorkers wanted to hear it. In fact, I know they didn't. Okay, guys, I'm ranting now. Let me stop the rant. The point is, come get your people. Come get your people.
I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna leave this shit alone. But everybody is asking for mercy for the good immigrants, and I get all immigrants are not criminals, and some of them are here living and doing the right thing. They really are. But if you think that if my black ass went over to Mexico, you think they'll treat me like that? If I live next door to them, in their country, you think they'll help me? Or do you think they'll help you? If you were an immigrant and went over into their country, do you think that they would do all for you that we do for them? No, they would not. They'll treat you like total shit. Kill you, do all. I ain't gonna even say all that on here,
Escort
but
your ass. Your ass
no,
gonna be
they
escorted.
won't. But they want sympathy over here in our country because it's the promised land. They're able to work, strive, and take care of their kids and all that. I get that. I do. But give the American people an opportunity as well.
Now, I'm not necessarily a fan of all of the crazy tattoos and the way that people move and all of that, but that's not what we're here for today. And so the first thing that I'm going to do, like I always do, is give credit to the content creators. So that link will be down in the description. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, teach Hanley 40% off your first order plus 20% off of life. Now, with that being said, she's absolutely right. Absolutely right. And most people understand that other governments and other countries, they want you because you have something to contribute into the economy. You have some way in which you add value and you build houses and you bring the American dollar over to their country. And so you feed into their economy and you become a contributing member. And so they're cool with it. And if you look at the requirements to become a citizen or even to be able to live in certain countries, they require you to do certain things. And if you don't meet that expectation, by God, you will be handled accordingly. And so because other people are not familiar with other countries, or they are not well traveled and they're not familiar with what happens or what the requirement is, or they haven't even researched it and looked it up, they only know what's being fed to them by the media. And so it tugs on their heartstrings, which then forces you to vote a certain way. But the reality is that is not what you think it is. And you are so naive and you are so disillusioned. And this is the reason why you have this sentiment. This is the reason why you think the way that you think. This is the reason why you're so horrified at the fact that people that broke the law, which you can't break the law in some other country. Boy, listen, I am terrified of breaking the law in somebody else's country. Here, I'm an American citizen. Yep, I don't mind getting a ticket, parking in the place that I didn't supposed to park in, even speeding a little bit. All right, cool. I'll take my ticket because I understand the country, I understand the rules, whatever. Go over into some of these other countries and think that you ain't getting away with nothing. We just seen some stories over the last couple of years of different people, Turks and Caicos. You get caught up over there, you can do 10 years just for having something inside of a piece of an ammunition inside of your book bag that you forgot that it was in there. You don't even know if they was planning on them. Go over there in Dubai. There's plenty of women. That trucker chick that was over there acting a fool and thought that she was going to get out of hand and get mouthy with somebody. And next thing you know, they was trying to figure out how to get her back home and calling the congressman and the legislators that was in her town or wherever she was from. Terrified of breaking the rules and doing something I'm not supposed to do when I'm in another country. And that's why I'm on my best behavior. Try that junk in another country if you want to, but people can break the rules. They ain't even got to come over here legally. They ain't got to declare nothing. They ain't got to even show themselves to be who they are. They just show up. They break the law. They beat up police officers. They rape people. They pillage. They plunder. they steal, they rob, they kill, and then they get released out to the streets. And we just supposed to be like, cool, no big deal. Let's protect them. Not only let's protect them, let's use our tax dollars to make sure that we take care of them. Shelter them, food, clothing, give them schooling, teach them English, all of this stuff. And for what? For what? Absolutely right. Let's dig.
Give it to them as well. That's all I'm saying. If they done us the same way we do them, people probably wouldn't have a problem with it. But if you go into those countries, you're not going to get what you get over here. Just be real. You're not. Half of the Mexican people you meet in the street be nasty and rude, don't want to speak, all type of shit. Like, I'm sorry that they got to go back. You know, especially the ones that done built a whole little life over here for them and stuff. Hopefully they saved up enough money. Now they're going back, they can go back to their country and live pretty decent because our money is worth more over there. So if they were smart and thinking, they should have been saving that money because they never know all good things must come to an end. They should have knew Trump. They should have been preparing themselves when he started running.
Why would they do that when the expectation is for them to get a free handout? Because the Biden administration has set things in place, and previous administrations said that you can live here forever. We're not even going to trip. Birthright citizenship, DACA, overstay a visa, do whatever you want to do when you want to do it. Hey, land of the free, home of the brave. You a citizen too. Even you may even have rights. Over in Chicago, they protecting them. They're protecting them over in Chicago. They saying here's a card. This is your rights. Oh, don't open the door. Shut up and do what you want to do. That's what's happening over in Chicago.
They should have been saving and putting it together.
And they do send a lot of money back home.
Because all he been talking about is a mass deportation. I mean, so if they haven't been saving up that money from working in hospitals and hotels and restaurants and construction working and doing all that, instead of paying and having other family members smoke over here, they should have been saving it for when they have to go back. It is what it is. And it's not a debate, and I'm not going to debate with y'all. You can say whatever you want to say. You can feel however you need to feel. You can say whatever you need to say on this post, but it ain't going to change my mind how I think or feel about anything. Our people go over there, get murdered. Don't even, because you do have a lot of American people who go over there and terrible things happen to them and they don't come back home.
We still ain't found out what happened to Shanquella at all. Everybody forgot about that. Moved on with their lives. Focus on Diddy.
Because the cartel be looking for anybody to do the unthinkable too. And everybody's a threat in their country if you're not from over there. They treat their own people like that. And I get the ones that are trying to flee from that. I do. But go to another country. Go to another country. You don't have to come to America. You don't have to come here. Go to another country. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I mean, kids going to be, Trump is, the child born here and the parents not, and
birthright citizenship was not supposed to be for the way they're finessing it today. They finessing the system.
And he ain't caring. He thinking about the American people. He not thinking about nobody else. The American people. And it's about time somebody thought about just us and not the other country and the other people.
That's a fact. That's 100% fact. It's about time that we close off everything, got ourselves back in order, back in line, get America back in order. And anybody that want to come over here, you can come over here legally and do it the right way. Other than that, we don't want to hear from you. We don't want to hear about it. We don't want to hear your tears. I used to get a whooping when I was a little kid, and my parents said it's going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you. And it absolutely made me a better person as a result of it. This is what's happening to you. It's your time. It's your time.
America on a boycott of retailers that have canceled their DEI participation program. Al Sharpton is upset. He said all of Black America should be upset.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a next step from affirmative action.
But should they? This question and others will be answered in this segment. Al Sharpton, he had his people, they had buses, they went to the Costco in Harlem, and they said, we're going to spend money with this Costco because this Costco has said they're going to maintain their DEI programs. If you don't maintain your DEI program, you're on a list to be boycotted. So Al Sharpton's big idea is we're going to go spend money as a Black community at the Costco because unlike Target, Costco's still doing DEI.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a next step from affirmative action. You can't tell me I got to shop where there is no diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can't make no law to force me to buy from folks that don't respect me. I work too hard to get my dollar to give it to some bigot.
He said he grabbed up 100 people, gave them $25 gift certificates, brought them to this Costco in Harlem to buy some stuff. They want to show they're doing what's called a buy-in. 90 days from now, he wants to do a boycott of the most egregious retailers that have the most amount of Black people shopping at their retail establishment and say, we're going to stop shopping with you because you canceled your DEI program. You listen to Trump and you are hurting Black Americans.
So we're going to make sure we get the company that has the largest consumer base in the Black community and has the smallest margin of profit. So when we call a boycott 90 days, that'll be in April around our convention time. We know that if we don't have, because some of y'all ain't never gonna be right. So if 30% of their consumers are Black and they operate off a 3 or 4 point margin of profit,
It's disgusting.
we ain't got to stop 100% of y'all. If we can stop 20% of y'all, he will be in the red. And the question is how long he can stay in business in the red and how long.
See, this scammer got to quit his hustling, this goddamn snitching. This man works for the FBI and wore wires and tried to find out where Asada Shakur was at. This is disgusting, bro. Black. Hey, brother, you don't speak for us. We not with you.
We can boycott.
I think it's time for us to stand up and tell Reverend Al it's time to take a bow. Yeah, Reverend Al Sharpton needs to go ahead and retire from his doings. We've had enough of this. This is a new age, Al. This is a new time, Al. Do you realize you've been doing this 40 years, Al? 40 years, Al. When you started, it wasn't even cable. Do you understand, Al? Your tactics, your adherence, your capitulation to the Democratic Party is not what we are on. Folks, DEI is not Black Americans. Why would Black Americans boycott? Because LGBTQ people aren't getting jobs at Costco? First of all, I don't even know if that's true or not. Just because you stop a DEI program doesn't mean you stop hiring people. Just means you stop the DEI program. I don't get it. If you're saying they're discriminating on those bases, you can still sue. You can still sue for discrimination, right? Are you saying the Department of Justice are taking that away? The bottom line is Black Americans are tired of carrying water for all these other groups. Where was Al? Where was Al's diverse people? You look at the crowd of people that was marching with Al. Look at the people here. Look at the people here, Al. Folks, Al's people here. You see a lot of Latinos and Asians and LGBTQ people. I don't. I see a bunch of Black people. I see a bunch of Black people over 65. That's Al's base. Here's the problem. That's not who's affected by DEI. Y'all riled up to help Al solve a problem. It's not our problem.
It's over for those civil rights shoe shots.
I never see my Native American people doing this. I never see my Jewish people doing it. Don't get me wrong. I've seen Jewish people and Native American people at different rallies that I've attended. There'd be a few Jewish people, a few Native American people, a few Asian people, a few Latino people, a few black people, a few white people. I've seen that, right? But you know what I never see? I never see a mass of them on a black issue. Why? Because they have their own issues. I'm not saying don't be empathetic to other people's issues. What I'm saying is Al is doing his best to incite black people to go out and do something that doesn't help black people. And he doesn't have the guts to do this for black people. I'm trying to think of the person who said this. It was on Twitter. I think it was Eve or Harriet. She put out a tweet and says, when was the last time Al took black people, 100 black people, to a black business and gave them vouchers to spend money at the black business? You know, if Reverend Al and Oprah and Tyler Perry and John Robert Johnson or Byron Allen and all these other people with money and Shaq, everybody with loot. All the people with loot. Went and got 100 people, 1,000 people, 1,000 black people, and gave them. Hell, you can even give white people you give Latinos, whites, Asians, all of them vouchers to be spent at the Tim Black store. Damn, I'd love to be a part of that. Yeah, why are you boosting a white-owned company? I saw the executive board of Costco look just like the executive board of Target. White. Why are you grabbing black people up to send them with money to go spend money with white businesses and then calling it black power? It doesn't make sense, guys. If black Jewish businesses needed help and they wanted to boost black Jewish businesses, they would spend money at black Jewish businesses. In fact, you probably wouldn't even need to rally them. They just do it anyway. They do it anyway. Same thing with the Asian community, the Korean community, the Chinese community, the Japanese community. They already do it. Now our black leaders, or our so-called black installed leaders, the people picked by the Democratic Party, put in front with a little bit of money, all the prestige, it shows nobody watches. Nobody watch Al's show. More people watch the 405 show. Or comedy, 450, is it 450? More people watch Club Shay Shay than watch Al Sharpton. Let's keep it real. Okay, so more people watch Godfrey's comedy show. More people watch the 5150 show than watch Al Sharpton. But they give them this notoriety because that means something to black people because we are damaged due to the system of white supremacy that black people ain't shit unless they're on a white network. Unless white people have given them something, unless white people appoint them. There are people that watch this show who won't support this show, won't do XYZ with this show, because I don't got a white guy that I work for. But if a white guy hired me, they'd be like, maybe he knows something. It's what happens.
That's a fact.
I'm going to get to that later. So here goes my thing, man. I don't have a problem with us boycotting any organization or any retailer. All of them deserve it. All of them probably underhire black people in positions of managerial or directorialship. Okay? That directors and management, we only represent like 3% on average in any corporation. So you got all the reason to boycott them. My problem is you're not boycotting them for us. You want us to boycott them for other people. The people that make the what is it, the yoga thing, the Lululemon. How many of my LGBTQ people would boycott Lululemon if they don't support black people? Yeah, Al, that's the question I want to ask you. How many of my yoga...
This is a problem. A lot of these racists are LGBT. See, this is the scam they run on. Like, what do you mean? They own these companies. These people is gay. It's all one big scam, Bob. We learned that yesterday. BlackRock is forcing a lot of these new programs on these companies. It's really a shakedown. It's really a manipulation. It's really a class of civilizations. It's really all about humiliating societies of people. It's really all about behavior changes. And they see the civil rights coons, they ready to jump when they told to jump. You see? So we know we're going to have 4 years. They taking everything away from us, all everything our ancestors fought for. I can't take people serious who just saying that shit on the internet, bro. If any of y'all feel like that, get your motherfucking ass in the street. Anybody who say, Coach, have you heard about get in the street and let's take care of business? I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about you got to go and champion what you saying not going to be taken away from you. Have you got with any city officials about this type of shit? These civil rights coons don't not speak for us, and that's good. I'll rip up anything, any deals they made. Rip that shit up. That's toilet paper. We on a new deal today. We want to make a new deal with America. We don't agree to anything that those bastards signed any goddamn way.
Enthusiasts who are LGBTQ would boycott Lululemon to support my black ass. Or Nina Turner's black ass, or Cornel West's black ass. How many of them would do that? I'm just wondering. Would that go mainstream? These are questions. But see, when black people say no, people call it racist. When black people say, nah, this isn't cool, I don't rock with this, this doesn't make sense for my community, we got those people that call us racist. And some of those people are black. They don't know shit. They're not thinking straight. Their minds are warped from white supremacy. But even black people say that. So I'm not even knocking all the white people because you ain't the only ones that don't look out for our best benefit. Some of us don't look at our best interests and they're black. Reverend Al wants us to champion for an issue that affects the entire country. And to prove my point, Joy Reid, now I seldom use Joy Reid for anything, but when you're right, you're right. A broken clock can be right twice a day. In fact, it is. A broken clock is always right at least twice a day. It all depends when you cut it on, when you look at it. Oh, Lord behold, it's right. 11:44. Joy Reid spoke to this in this segment.
Donald Trump's administration has ordered federal diversity, equity, and inclusion employees to be placed on leave by today in an effort to demolish DEI initiatives across the federal government. Trump signed an executive order Monday ending what he calls radical and wasteful DEI programs in federal agencies. That means DEI-related offices and programs will be shuttered and all websites and social media accounts for such offices removed. What is the union's response going to be?
Well, first of all, I think that we have obligation to educate the public as to what DEI really is, because number one, it's not affirmative action as some might think. DEI is about making sure that, say, a veteran may have a handicap, an injury from the services and come to work for the federal government. DEI would make sure that that veteran has the I guess I would say the opportunity to work in a job, and they will place them in a position where they could accommodate that veteran and so that they can do their job. So DEI is about that and about providing services for workers. It's not about the color of a person's skin.
And it's not a quota program.
It's
Let's
not a
just be clear. It means that, not, and it also, I think, for a lot of conservatives, they believe DEI just means black people getting jobs. And so when they see a black person in any job, they say, oh, that person's a DEIer.
No, but see, here's the point. Al's operating as if DEI means black too. That's my point. This has been my argument. And there are people that have been disagreeing with me. Maybe now you believe because a spokesperson who's hired by MSNBC, a white-owned company, they're telling you. Maybe I didn't tell you correctly. Let me try again. I'm sorry, Johnson. I'm sorry. Maybe it's not you. Maybe it's me. DEI is not a construct built for Black Americans. It's a construct built for all Americans. Several groups can attribute their success in the employment or the workplace based on DEI. It supports veterans as well as LGBTQ, as well as women and people of all races and orientations and backgrounds, religions, ethnicities. That's the strength of DEI. It's a misnomer to assume that DEI means Black, when it's the opposite. DEI means diversity, equity, and inclusion of all peoples. Back to you, Tim. Joy Reid's absolutely right. DEI is not Black. My problem is I got all these Black people that work for all these nations, all these stations, all these entities, talking to Black people and riling Black people up about something when they should be talking to white people, particularly white women and Latino folks and Asian folks and Native American folks and all other folks and veterans. Like, it helps all these people to some extent, but nobody specifically, and nobody to the extent that they would cut their arm off to get out of the bear trap. Now, if the employer thinks this will make his business look like Benetton, where you got a Black, a Latino, an Asian, a person in a wheelchair, a disabled person, differently bodied, abled person, a LGBTQ person, a Black person, a white person, a woman, a Black woman, a white woman, an Asian woman. Like, if that's what you're looking for, yeah. But please, cut the cap. This is not, it's been misused by the Patrick Bet-Davids, the Ben Shapiros, the Tim Pools, who intentionally want to misuse it for that purpose. And it's also been misused by the spokesmodels of the Democratic Party, who are misusing it and mislabeling it and applying it and making it about something it's not. It is not an affirmative action for Black Americans. You just heard your girl Joy Reid say it, your lady Joy Reid say it very succinctly. It doesn't mean us. So stop gaslighting Black America about a program that is not for Black Americans specifically. Let's motivate, inspire, fortify, encourage Black people to rise up to support our upliftment. We're the ones on the bottom, folks. I'm not saying it's not good to support other things, to support issues that impact everyone. But folks, when you are worth 10 cents of every dollar of a white family on average, when you are 40% of the homeless rate, when you're only 13% to 14% of the overall population, when you're 3 and 4 times more incarcerated, don't you think we got other issues we should be addressing before we address if able-bodied people are getting helped in DEI, or if Asian women are getting positions in DEI? Yeah, only a fool doesn't deal with their own issues first. And that's exactly what these people are trying to make us. Fools.
Well, Trump gone and done it now. Trump done gone and revoked our civil rights, y'all. He took it away. At least that's what we've been hearing. We've been hearing how this new EO is going to make it so difficult for us Black folk to make it in America no more. I want to put your worries at ease just for a minute. If you just pay me some attention, I want a little bit of time, a little bit, because I think what's happening to those of us that think that, you've fallen into the trap of well, I would call it a fear trap. Okay, they do this in order to rile you up to keep believing something that ain't true. And we're hoping to put the queries to rest and try and put your mind at ease about what this really means. Okay, what I've been hearing, and I've been hearing a lot about this. Every time I open TikTok or open Instagram and I see somebody talking, they say, President Trump just revoked the Civil Rights Act. He just undid it all. Now Black people and people of color and those in minorities are never going to get jobs again. Slow the horses down a bit. Put the chariot in park if you must. Step away from the phone. Just 1 second. The EO that he signed does not affect every single American on Earth here. What it does, it's targeted towards the federal side of the United States, if you understand what I'm saying. So like federal workers, people that work for the federal government or that are contracted with the federal government, those people are the ones that are going to be under this particular EO. So let's talk about what it undid before we did anything else. What it undid was a former EO done by former President Biden. And what it really did is that it took away this overabundance of what they would call affirmative action. The problem is that what they implemented with Executive Order 11246, which is the one that Biden signed, is that it actually encouraged discrimination while calling it non-discrimination. I'll break down how I mean. Say you are a straight white male. You are qualified for the job. You would not be able to get the job because they need a certain amount, a quota of people that don't look like you or have your qualifications in order to feel as though what they've done is equality. Now, the person that they hire may not have to be any kind of qualified, know what the job's doing, but they have to be of a certain skin type, sexual orientation type, that kind of stuff. And ironically, that goes against the law of discrimination because you're discriminating based on something that the person cannot control. You see the problem here? So when you undo that, you allow the actual law to take place. So let's take a look at what it actually does, okay? The order requires a streamline of the federal contracting process to enhance speed and efficiency, reduce costs, and require federal contractors and subcontractors to comply with our civil rights laws. Wait. If he undid the civil rights laws, what laws would they be complying with? You see, when you listen to people lying to you, the first thing that will take over is your emotions. And when your emotions take over, you cannot listen logically to what is actually taking place. It revokes Executive Order 11246, contracting criteria mandating affirmative action. It bars the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs from pushing contractors to balance their workforce based on sex, gender, race, gender identity, sexual preference, or religion. It requires simple and unmistakable affirmation that contractors will not engage in illegal discrimination, including illegal DEI. Now, just hear me out. Unless you are directly going to go work for the federal government, this does not affect you whatsoever. So people thinking they're just going to up and lose their job because this new EO is going into place, that's not happening. If you were told that, they lied to you. Let's just be honest. They lied to you. Now, let's take a look at what it actually undid in the minds of people. Where the civil rights movement said you cannot discriminate based on this, and this, DEI came in telling you that it was going to make sure it was doubling down and making sure that people didn't do it. But what it actually did was solidify people doing it to the counter, where the civil rights was covering and making sure that people who were not represented properly, or at least looked over, got a fair shake to join the team, be interviewed, and get the job. DEI forced other people, under the same criteria of everybody getting an equal shot, away from the table while bringing people who may not be qualified because they were discriminated against, at least on paper. So what did you do? You inverted everything. So now the ones that you say were displaced are now given preferential treatment instead of everybody getting equal footing. That's also unfair. You don't overgive just to try and level the playing field, open the playing field. So what does that actually mean for us? What it really means, and I'm talking about us, all right, us. This is what it means for us. You have to make yourself exceptional. You know, that used to be a good thing. Do you remember way back in the day? Maybe some might not remember, but way back in the day, it used to be that you need to set yourself apart, be different, be unexpendable. Be the kind of worker that when you're absent, the boss be like, man, I think things might not.
What was I saying the other day? I know the truth because my granddaddy and my daddy. they had, my granny and them had plenty, still got plenty of land because what them dudes was doing. But I'm not listening to these shoe shiners tell me a motherfucking thing. It was always about outworking these other people. You have to outwork them. That's the only way you're going to make it here. Is you're going to have to outwork everybody else, no matter what. But they start telling us, no, you don't have to worry about that. You're going to be able to make it regardless if you know how to do this type of shit or not. That's bullshit. Not only do you need to know how to do it, you need to be able to outwork their ass morning, noon, and night. That's how we was making it. That's how my big papa. But nobody picked my big papa for no jobs because they was black. Are you crazy? No, they're outworking every motherfucking body and came up.
Might not go well today because Daryl ain't here. Be that kind of worker. I'll give you a personal example. I was not a very qualified person for a job I applied for. I really wasn't. I was going up against multiple people that were indeed far more qualified for the job than me. Ironically, they were of a different pigmentation of skin than I was, a more light pigmentation. Let's put it like that. And in my mind, I thought, well, once I get the job, I'll be fine. I can learn on the go. I knew about 60% of the job. Let's not say I was completely unqualified, but there were people who had years and years of experience doing this particular job. The difference was I was persistent. I applied and I called the very next day. Did y'all get my application? Yes, we did. Well, I was just checking to make sure that you looked over it. If there's anything I missed, please let me know. Okay, we'll let you know. I called back a day later. Oh, we're still in the deliberation process. We'll let you know as soon as possible. It might be a couple of days. So I gave them a couple of days. A couple of days later, I called them again. I said, hey, just checking to see where you guys are in the application process, making sure that I'm still at the top or at least being looked at. Well, we still haven't taken a look at everybody yet, so please give us some time. We'll call you back. I didn't wait for them. I called them again, and I called them again, and I called them again. A month later, after calling them almost every single day, here's the last call I made to them. Hey, just checking again to see if y'all have taken a look. Okay, listen, man, you've called every day. What's the deal? We told you. I said, I get that you told me that, but this is my job we're talking about, and I want to make sure that I tell you that I'm not just interested. I really want this job, and I will be a thorn in your side until you give me an answer. So they put me on to their hiring guy, a guy named Sean. And Sean says, I see you've been calling. I said, yeah, because I really want this job. He said, well, we have another guy that's in your area that's a little more qualified than you. But the odd thing is he ain't never called since he got his application put in. And in my mind, I thought the reason he hasn't put his call back in is because he really thought his qualifications alone was enough. No effort is needed. I don't need to be persistent. That alone should be enough. However, I made myself not just available, but a nuisance. Now, you could say I got the job to shut me up, but I got the job, even if it was for them to shut me up, to prove myself. So I got the job. I outdid, at least in calling, the guy that was more qualified than me. Once I got that job, it was game over. Mm-hmm. My intent from that point on was to make myself so needed by that company that even if I missed a day sick, they would suffer. And that happened. But I didn't put myself in this position where I thought, you know what? They're going to have to keep me because I'm a certain shade. The problem is when we start to look at life that way, you lose. If you don't value what you bring to something, how are they going to value it? If you don't see the value in what you offer, you can't expect someone else to simply because of how you look. Your looks aren't going to get the job done. I can hire you because I don't have enough black people at my job. Say that's the reason I hire you. But then you show up to work and you don't know nothing about what I'm teaching you. And you just keep going because your job is to do this, 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 and this. And you tell me, well, I don't know how to do this, this, and this. And you say, why? Well, because I didn't get hired based on what I know. Okay, then we're going to learn it. Well, I don't know if I want to learn all that. But you wanted a job. Well, I needed a job. You're not going to keep a job that way. And you know what most will say? I got fired because I was black. No, you got fired because you wouldn't work. There's a big difference. This particular EO that he signed has nothing to do with your day-to-day jobs, nothing to do with you working down at Piggly Wiggly, the gas station, the bank, for some kind of a vault. Nothing. It has nothing to do with that. Federal only. Stop letting people scare you. However, your merit is where you should be placing your interest. That's it. What you can offer people. If you make yourself a commodity, something that the company cannot do without, you will be rewarded for it. Countless people have proven this. It does not matter your skin, does not matter your background. If you apply yourself, good things will happen. The majority of people that own businesses out there want their business to thrive. They do not enter into business to fail. They don't enter into business to try and placate the people either, because they're trying to make money. If you can facilitate their dream, you will be part of it. That's just how it goes. Now, if you really think that you have bringing something to the table, bring it. And not just bring it, bring something that nobody else will bring, whether that be in your approach to the manager, what kind of hours you're willing to put in, how hard you're willing to work, what you're willing to learn different than the rest of the people. You make yourself special. And I can already hear some of these people saying, why do we got to work so much harder than the rest of the people? What's wrong with working hard? What's wrong with working hard? Ironically, we don't see that issue when it comes to sports. There are some athletes that are just gifted. Man, they came out with like jetpacks on their back, okay? Or they come out 15 times stronger than everybody else. But somehow some of them get undone and outworked by the weaker. Take, for instance, Tom Brady, okay? I know I'm mentioning a white, but listen to me. The man couldn't run for nothing. He has these, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he has the slowest QB 40 time of anyone in the combine. He had no skills. You know what Tom Brady did, though? Tom Brady outworked everybody else. Look, I don't like the man. I'm going to tell you now, every time he played, I hated it. But what I could not knock was the man's work ethic. He put in that work. He put in the work. And if you want something, you can outwork people that have more skill than you. You can. You can outwork people that have more gifts than you. You can make yourself more marketable than them. So there's nothing wrong with working hard to get above somebody else. What happens, though, is when you think that you have more than the other person and you become lackadaisical, you lose, and then you complain because I have all this talent. Well, you have all the talent, but none of the gusto. This particular act that they're revoking, this former executive order, is a good thing, not a bad thing. We do not want people in a position, especially at the federal level, doing a job just because they look a certain way. You want them to do the job because they're capable of the job. Not just capable of it, but they are so adept at the job that they will get it done exquisitely. I'm not hiring you to look good doing it. I'm hiring you to make sure the job looks good when you're done. This will assure that. You don't do it. You trust me, you don't want a DEI doctor, do you? I mean, okay, so we're short on black doctors. Here's this one. Is he any good? No, but he's black. Has he ever done any surgeries? No, but he's black. We're going to put him in surgery? Yes. Why? He's a doctor. But is he any good? Don't worry about that. He's black. Are you willing to risk that kind of stuff for your own health? Well, I'll tell you, for me, I'm not. I need to know you're qualified. I don't care what you look like. I just need to know you're qualified. Is that bad? When I was growing up, it was okay to outwork and work harder than the next person. We're not all proficient at everything. There are going to be people that are better than you at something. And it might be in a position you want. You have two options. Submit that they're better than you and never try to get the job, or try to outwork them and get the job instead. You have that opportunity. At every turn, you have that opportunity. There is nothing keeping you from exceeding in this country. Not one thing. The biggest obstacle you'll have is yourself. Google has become a resource. YouTube has become a resource. I'll tell you what, I learned a lot of stuff from YouTube. I did. When I first started in the telecommunications, I didn't know nothing about telecommunications, especially this new age stuff. So you know what I did? I went to YouTube. How do I do this kind of wire splicing? Spent hours looking at it, trying to get to learn it. And I went back to work the next day because I knew they were going to have this as a job. I thought, I got to get up on this. They don't know I don't know. I'm not telling them I don't know, but I'm going to know by tomorrow. And in doing that, I educated myself, and my education propelled me to the top tiers of that company. I went from just a regular worker, starting at a very menial labor hour, and then by the next month, I was put in charge. I became foreman and then assistant manager. And they almost put me as a manager throughout the region. I went to a different company. I became a manager there. And every time I got a different job, I applied myself even harder, and my paycheck just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Why? Was it because of my skin? No. It was because I knew what I was capable of, and I applied myself. I made myself non-expendable. They couldn't get rid of me. Getting rid of me would jeopardize the company. That's where I placed myself. You have that same opportunity if you want it. You have to make yourself marketable, non-expendable. The company has to find a way to have you around all the time. You want them to have their other employees mirror you. Have your work ethic, have your drive, and yes, even have your knowledge of the job. But you can do that. The only one stopping you from that is you. Do you want to succeed or not? But listening to people lying to you about something is definitely not going to help you. This executive order does not revoke anything to do with already mandated law from the Civil Rights Bill. It does not. It simply removes a company working for the federal government from overdoing and overextending what is already law and flipping it to the opposite, one extreme to the other. Stop listening to the lies. That's the only thing we can ask you. But if at the end of the day you still want to continue, that's on you.
Come on, they gaslighting y'all, bro, trying to win an election. If they're gonna gaslight for 4 years, bro. But we're gonna expose the shoe shining Greek freaks. They don't give a fuck about no racism here in America, man. We gotta stop believing that these people it gives a damn about ending racism in America. It's just, but you know what you'll be facing. They want you to think you're going back to the fields. Cotton is back on the table. Oh,
what does President Donald Trump's approval rating look like so far?
The answer may or may not surprise you. Let's take a look at CNN's Harry Enton breaking down the numbers this past weekend.
This is a very different Donald Trump. He's leading a very different administration, the way he's attacking things. And the American public is very much more in line with him than they were at any point during his entire first term.
Well, I would say, correction, this is not a very different Donald Trump. This is a very different Donald Trump as being viewed by voters in this
In the
moment.
way he's going about things with Susan Wiles leading things. I think he is, going at things in a much less disorganized fashion, much more organized.
Take me back in history.
Take you back in history. So it was so interesting to me that Donald Trump's first net approval rating of his second term is higher than his entire first term. And I was interested, has that ever happened? Has the second term net approval rating in the first month, have you ever had a higher rating than any net approval rating during the entire first term? Donald Trump is the only...
I have a really hard time believing this.
This is 100% true. I went back. I love spreadsheets. Donald Trump's is the first guy ever whose net approval rating in the first month of his second term is higher than any rating that he had as an entire first term, Kate Baldwin. This is true. I don't make stuff up. The numbers are the numbers.
I believe you in nothing except when you have it in the wall, and then I believe everything you say.
I really like this clip because Harry Enton, who's really good, by the way, he's become a great pollster and pretty solid commentator. Just hitting her with facts. Like, you don't have to like it, but she's outraged at the facts of the facts. She's like, no, there's no way he could be this popular. Like, look, he is more. These are some important firsts showing that this is in some. I get that from her view, Donald Trump is temperamentally the same person that he was the first time around, and then some, maybe even more ornery than he was before. From the perspective of the things he's trying to accomplish, we talked about this earlier, his base is very happy with what they're seeing in terms of the appointments is not just just only garden variety, old guard Republicans who were going to do what they were going to do regardless of Donald Trump coming in, but people who align very closely with him for good or for ill from your perspective. And he has made himself, despite January 6th and everything else that Trump, rightly or wrongly, rightly in that view of mine, deserves criticism for, he has become more popular over time.
It's certainly true that his approval ratings right now are pretty strong. I don't quite get why the CNN anchor was quite so shocked as she was. Because
she lives in a little bubble where everyone hates Donald Trump?
Well, possibly, but also possibly because she's overlooking the fact that when presidents first come into office, they typically do have pretty strong approval ratings. I was just looking at the Gallup figures here, and it seems like...
She just told you never before in history, brother. This is the best ever. See, now you're going to try to go find you some polls that say otherwise, huh?
In the Januaries of their first term, both Biden and Obama had approval ratings of around 60%. Now, she is making, I think, a different argument, or maybe Harry Enton was making a different argument, because he's saying, well, this is the start of Trump's second term. But of course, apart from your great hero, Grover Cleveland, he's
never happened before.
It's never happened before. Yeah. So we've never had the honeymoon period of a second term, with the exception of Grover, where I don't think modern polling existed, where people have had, as it were, a break from someone for 4 years and then they have come back as president. So yes, he has approval ratings that are pretty strong right now. I think there are reasons for that you have just outlined. I think it is quite commonplace for new presidents, which he still is, despite the fact that it's a non-consecutive second term. And we'll see where he is 6 months or a year from now. I mean, by the end of Biden's first year, the Afghanistan withdrawal had capsized him, and he never really recovered.
He never really recovered, although then his party did better than expected in the midterms. I think they suffered some uniquely bad, the Republicans suffered from having some uniquely bad candidates in some key races that perhaps contributed then to Biden's overconfidence, desire to seek a second term despite having previously.
We just wanted to see fake news reaction to the historical polls that they're witnessing. So they're going to try to sabotage America. That's what we're going to be seeing. But you see the shoe shine of the, they rights getting taken. These people are being ashamed of their goddamn self. These uppity, bougie house niggas living off the hog. They made millions off of their DEI and civil rights scams. Al Sharpton them. Al Sharpton couldn't wait to come back March once again. He can't believe that, people will believe any bullshit that they peddling. But people all over social media, your rights, you take it away. Yeah, every fucking day. You gotta do something for your rights, bro. Your rights, people didn't get you no fucking rights. No? Man, people ain't got you nothing. What the hell y'all talking about? What rights did they get you?
Surprise.
With some of the Arab nations, I'd like Egypt to take people.
Into Egypt. Take a listen on President Trump and what appear to be his profound public misunderstandings of Russia. But before we do that, I'm going to play a clip of the president in Air Force One yesterday. It was rather disturbing. Now, this is the way the White House released it. There are still photos of him. It's obviously his voice. It's not an actual video of him. But this is where he's saying he's considering the forcible removal of 1.5 million Gazans, Palestinians from Gaza to Jordan and to Egypt. Take a listen. Cut number 4.
I said to him, I'd love you to take on more, because I'm looking at the whole Gaza Strip right now, and it's a mess. It's a real mess.
You'd like Jordan to house people from
I'd
Gaza?
like him to take people. I'd like Egypt to take people. I'm meeting with, I'm talking to General Sisi tomorrow, sometime, I believe. And I'd like Egypt to take people, and I'd like Jordan to take people. You're talking about probably 1.5 million people. And we just clean out that whole thing. And I don't know, it's something has to happen, but it's literally a demolition site right now. Almost everything's demolished, and people are dying there. So I'd rather get involved with some of the Arab nations and build housing at a different location where they can maybe live in peace for a change.
Temporary, or would they ever
It could be either. Could be temporarily, could be long term.
That's disgusting. I dare him talk about that is genocide also. You can't be forced moving people, bro. That's genocide also. Can't be kicking people off their land, moving them to other fucking nations, talking about building them houses. What the fuck you talking about? They got land. It's called Gaza. You see? Trump, you see, he just can't help himself. This ain't no big deal on the table for him to be moving them people out their goddamn land. That's disgusting. I just got to be on the record.
Is he falling right into the hands of the right wingers and Prime Minister Netanyahu's government?
He's just talking off the top of his head without even thinking it through. And he's going to be in for a rude surprise when he gets General Sisi on the phone or King Abdullah in Jordan. They're going to say, yeah.
They're going to disagree. Egypt definitely not going to go for it. But he still has said the disgusting bullshit. See? People got to look at you. You want to move people off their motherfucking land so the Zionists could steal all that land and build beachfront houses. But no, them people want that land to do all that shit you're talking about.
Donald, there are two ways that can happen. There's no way, and there's no way in hell. No, not going to happen. This is, people in the West, particularly in the United States, have come up with this as an idea. And I hear, several critics of the Palestinians always say, well, what, one of those other Arabs, just take them. This is their land. This is their land for generations. This is, the reality is that a lot of the people in Israel now, the Zionists, they're European. They came out of Ukraine. They came out of Russia. They came out of Poland.
If you dare force them people off their land, that's how you get motherfuckers want to attack your ass. That's how you make enemies who didn't have no problem with you. You see, you're trying to force people off their goddamn land in the U.S. borders like it is. You might be getting you a surprise coming across that motherfucker. You can't be doing dumb shit like stealing land in the times that we in.
They don't have any historical tie, even though they claim, we controlled it for 3,500 years. No, you didn't. And that nonsense that we hear from people like Elise Stefanik and Mike Huckabee just has to stop. And so here's Trump riffing off of that. Well, what he ought to pay attention to, and I know that you talked about this earlier this morning with Alistair Crook, 1.5 million, at least 1 million Palestinians are walking on the road back home. It is, I see irony in this because today is the 80th anniversary commemoration of the Russian liberation of Jews at Auschwitz.
That's a fact.
This was the day Auschwitz was liberated 80 years ago. And then here, ironically, we see the Palestinians marching back into their devastated neighborhoods. And yes, it's rubble, but they're going back because they would rather live there in the rubble because it's their home than be shipped off somewhere else to try to find where they might be made more comfortable. This isn't about human comfort. And that's one thing we need to wrap our brains around in the United States.
Larry,
these people are not animals.
The president lifted the embargo on 2,000-pound bombs. Why do the Israelis need 2,000-pound bombs? They drop them on refugee tents?
Yeah. Well, but what good did it do? Here, and again, not to repeat Alistair, but to repeat Alistair because it's a very important point that he made. The visual images that came out when the 4 Israeli soldiers, the 4 women, were released, where they were surrounded by a phalanx of Hamas Al-Qassam Brigade fighters dressed in perfect uniforms and carrying new weapons. Many of them looked to be Israeli weapons that they had captured. And they weren't showing weakness. They were showing presence. And yet we thought Israel had destroyed them. Israel hasn't destroyed them. So that's the thing we have to recognize, is that this is a viable, we may not like it in the West, but it's a viable political organization, military organization, and Israel can't beat it. They can kill more civilians if they want. For what purpose? And let me address, because some of the Israeli press was going off on, see, this shows Hamas. They were using all these.
At the beginning of this war, Israel was not going to be able to defeat Hamas because Israel didn't want to go underground. They don't want to fight in the dark where it's hard and it's cold. They're not that brave, and that's just what happened. The U.S., same thing. That's how the Vietnamese beat their ass. They had them underground tunnels. The U.S. didn't want to go in them tunnels as mode. That's horrible. They claustrophobic. Anyway, so Trump need to be careful, man, because you can drop bombs and do all that bullshit. They people ain't nothing to bomb. You're going to have to go underground to fight these legendary soldiers, and it ain't going to be good for you.
These civilians as human shields, they're basically arguing that's why we got to kill civilians. Well, I come from ancestors who were civilians that fought British colonialists. All right. And just because they were some of civilians, they give the Brits rights to kill civilians. No more so than it doesn't give the Zionists the right to murder women and children just because they say we're trying to kill the Al-Qassam Brigade. It didn't work. So yeah, give them 2,000-pound bombs. It doesn't eliminate. Israel cannot kill its way to peace.
What has Netanyahu gained by this war? He changed the Yahya Sinwar to his brother or his cousin.
Yeah, I mean that was, that was a poignant and telling line that Netanyahu faces. This is more than Netanyahu, because let's say Netanyahu dies tomorrow. He's got prostate cancer.
So they kill Yahya Sinwar, who is the leader of Hamas. Now his brother, who is more vicious than him, is the leader. So what did they do? Nothing.
Reportedly has some heart issues. He goes away. This does not change the fundamental policy that I think most of the Israelis embrace, which is to get rid of the Palestinians. Now, they will argue over the way that is to be done. But as far as the overall goal, eliminating them is right up there. And then, as you played the clips last week of Elise Stefanik in her conversations on the Hill, where she utters this nonsense that, the land of the West Bank, that belongs to all these guys, these Jews from Ukraine, because God gave it to them 3,000 years ago. Yeah. If you want to believe in nonsensical fantasies like that, fine, indulge yourself. But that is it's absurd, and intelligent people should not embrace such nonsense.
Is Trump in favor of genocide?
No. Trump is, Trump, what we saw on the plane is he's like a jazz musician. He's just riffing off of the tune that's in his brain at the time. But actually, when he sits down and thinks this through, because the other thing that he's doing right now, it's really unsettling the rabid Zionist supporters here in the United States, is sending Witkoff off to talk to the Iranians. And reportedly, we've made a lot about Miriam Adelson and, her ties, alleged ties, at least, with Mossad, and the money that she reportedly gave to Donald Trump, anywhere from 50 million to 100 million, figuring that, she would be one forcing Trump to, jump around like an organ grinder's monkey to do her bidding. But in fact, she's been supporting Trump in this ceasefire effort and is actually opposing Netanyahu now, something that was unheard of maybe a year or two ago.
Played by her.
So I think there are things going on behind the scenes that don't fit into any of the neat little boxes. And here's, Trump talking about this on the plane, I don't think reflected a serious plan to follow through.
Well, your optimism is refreshing, Larry. Let's switch to the things he says and has been saying off the top of his tongue about Russia.
Yeah.
That the Russians have lost 1 million troops in Ukraine. I mean, that is really preposterous.
Well, but let's be clear. Trump is not saying that because that's what Trump has thought or believes. That is what Donald Trump has been told by.
He need to stop repeating bullshit because Putin don't respect that. Putin don't repeat any bullshit that his generals and chiefs and wise men bring to him, that he a real leader. If Trump want to be respected as a guy, Trump could keep trying that shit. Keep thinking he come out here and disrespect Russia, acting like they lost so many soldiers and Russian economy is ruined. Putin take that as disrespect because he takes that as propaganda. So Putin is not going to keep letting Trump come out and disrespect him. Mark my word, Putin going to throw some disrespect because Putin knows what Trump is doing. He's trying to sneak diss him. That's serious business, man. So if you a boss, you're supposed to tell the truth. You're not supposed to just take anything the CIA is telling you. Then say, oh, I was lied to. Man, Putin ain't going to fall for that.
By the intelligence community. The intelligence community is lying to Donald Trump. This is nothing that Trump and his advisors came up with. And we got concrete proof of that more than a week ago when David Ignatius interviewing and writing this puff piece on Bill Burns, the Biden's CIA director. It was Bill Burns talking about the 700,000 casualties that the Russians are suffering. So Trump's been getting CIA briefings for at least 2 or 3 months. And in the course of that time, I guarantee you, nobody's come out and said, hey, Mr. President, the reality is Russia's only suffered, maybe killed in action, 120,000 max. They've had some wounded soldiers as well, maybe another 300,000, but it's not creating political pressure on Vladimir Putin at all. None. And the economy is solid. That's not what they've been telling him. They've been telling him the exact opposite. So now Trump is repeating that. And that's being filled with those false assumptions. It'd be natural for Trump to say, oh man, if Putin's taking that kind of beating, both in terms of loss of troops and the economy, yeah, he'll jump at a deal. I'm gonna force his hand.
These CIA people, who I guess are in an interregnum between Bill Burns and John Radcliffe, are making the president look ridiculous. Is this going to improve? I know it'll improve under Gabbard if she's confirmed, Tulsi Gabbard, but will it improve under John Radcliffe, or is he cut from the same cloth?
Well, it depends. Understand the people doing this are what Ray McGovern did back in his day, but I'm not. Unlike Ray, they're dishonest. Unlike Ray, they're shading the truth. And in fact, this New York Times article that came out with it wasn't a New York Times article, it was an ABC News piece, but they came out together that noted that the intelligence community is not reporting the real truth about Ukrainian losses because it would be it would hurt morale.
Oh,
yeah, learning the truth about the massive gargantuan losses Ukraine is suffering would hurt morale. Well, we can't have that.
Here's Trump talking about 1 million Russians killed. This is the day after he was inaugurated. This is last Tuesday, January 21st. Chris?
President Zelensky would like to have peace. He's told me that very strongly. He'd like to have peace, but it takes two to tango. We'll see what happens.
When will you meet with President Putin?
Anytime they want, I'll meet. I'd like to see that end. Millions of people are being killed, and they're being killed. It's a vicious situation, and they're now largely soldiers. A lot of people have been killed in the cities. They look like demolition sites.
The thing with Ukraine is that many more people died than you're reporting. You're not reporting the real numbers, and I'm not blaming you for that. I'm blaming maybe our government for not wanting to release those numbers. Many more people died than what you know about.
Yeah. I mean, that's what, he's just reflecting what he's being told in these briefings.
Right.
Having done briefings, so I never brief the president. I did brief Vice President Quayle. And, I always saw my job as telling the truth as I understood it and to make sure I had as many sources as possible. I wasn't there to spin it. I wasn't there to try to tell him what he wanted to hear. My job was to be the Dutch uncle, to bring unpleasant truths if necessary. And unfortunately, under Avril Haines, the former director of national intelligence, this was the prevarication seemed to be the primary objective.
I don't know how these people can live with themselves. As a result of all their prevarications, human beings died.
They don't care. It's not their family. I mean, they're miles away. They don't smell the stench of death, the burning flesh. They don't see the rotting corpses. Nah, man, they commute from their homes in either Northern Virginia or Maryland. I used to drive across the bridge get on the George W. Washington Parkway, and then, a few minutes down, you hop off and get into the CIA headquarters. You sit in a nice office, or maybe they're at the offices at the DNI out at Tyson's Corner. But wherever they are in that office, they are hermetically sealed off from the reality of the human suffering that they're causing. And all they know is, don't rock the boat.
Right.
Because if you rock the boat, then you're not going to get promoted. If you rock the boat, you're going to create unrest. And we've got a lot invested in this covert action. The CIA is up to its eyebrows. And this is one of the real dangers that come when you intermingle analysts with operators. Because when operators get committed to a covert action like the Ukraine project, then the pressure is put on the analysts to not say or write anything that would undermine support for that effort. Even if that effort's going awry, if it's crashing and burning, don't say anything to rock the boat.
What do you think Trump will say to Putin when they meet? Surely he's not going to threaten him.
No, he won't. He won't threaten Putin. And if he did, it'd be foolish. Trump, I think, he's got this public persona. The Donald Trump from The Apprentice. The bombast, the bellicosity, etc. It's an act. But people that have actually dealing with him on one-on-one, they record he's actually very, very generous, very kind, and actually pays attention to people. So he's going to try to build rapport with Putin. He wants to be liked by Putin. He doesn't want to be disliked by Putin.
Has the spigot been turned off for Ukraine? Do we know that?
On the let's call it the financial assistance side, in terms of economic aid, aid going to non-governmental organizations. Yeah, that reportedly has been turned off, not just for Ukraine, but for everybody except Israel and Egypt. So that lets Zelensky know where they stand. Reportedly, the military equipment and ammunition, vehicles, such that's still in the pipeline. But that brings up the other problem. So what? It gets there. Who's gonna use it? Ukraine has a severe manpower shortage, and it's not getting better. And in fact, General Syrskyi, the head of the Ukrainian military, for now anyway, admitted as much last week that they may be recruiting 20,000 people a month, but they're losing 40,000.
Larry, how can Trump justify continuing to keep the spigot open after all he said about Biden's recklessness during the campaign.
Yeah, well, he shouldn't. He would be well advised, but to immediately pull the plug across the board. And maybe he's doing that indirectly. Again, we can't always take at face value what we're seeing in public, because he also does some surprising things behind the scenes. As we saw with the ceasefire, pushing that ceasefire forward in Israel, really, that he was a critical difference in that. And it's really sort of upended the Netanyahu government. So I think you could see a similar thing at work with respect to Ukraine. Regardless of what Trump does, it's not going to change what Russia is doing and will do in the coming weeks. Even over the weekend, 4 key cities have fallen, including or on the verge of collapse: Chazov Yar, Toretsk, Pokrovsk being 3 of the principal ones. So it is, and then there's Novoselica that fell, and these were all important logistic hubs. So as they collapse, the ability of the Ukrainians to keep the Russians from the Dnieper River will have evaporated.
Larry, I like the way you're pronouncing these cities' names. You're starting to sound like McGovern.
yeah, that's one of the benefits of hanging out with Ray.
Thank you for your time, my dear friend. I trust you'll hang out with us again at 4:00.
Iran. Are the neocons and the deep state trying to undermine President Trump from him achieving peace in Ukraine and the Middle East? Well, it sure seems that way. Overnight, warmonger and war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu is very unpopular in Israel, despite what the media is telling you, by the way. He sent a thank you video to Trump for allowing 2,000-pound bombs to flow into Israel. Watch.
Thank you, President Trump, for keeping your promise to give Israel the tools it needs to defend itself, to confront our common enemies, and to secure a future of peace and prosperity.
Peace through bombs. I love it. Peace through bombs, right? So I just want you to think about why you would send a video message like that, okay? Just go to the 30,000-foot level here, okay? Trump didn't seem to be happy with Netanyahu's video message, and he posted on Truth Social that these bombs were already paid for by Israel under President Biden, meaning like I had nothing to do with this transaction. In other words, I didn't really have anything to do with it. So this video message is odd. I think it's odd. I'll ask you guys what you guys think about it. But my impression is that if like you were thankful to President Trump, you would just send him a private message through diplomatic channels, right? You would just say, hey, thanks for allowing that to happen. But instead,
you dog whistle
and you
that
virtue signal.
Trump loves dropping bombs for Israel.
What you're basically saying is, President Trump, I know how much you love Israel's security and us having 2,000-pound bombs. I'm going to publish this video to kind of let the world see that you and I are like simpatico on the same page. Like that's the sense I get with this video release. It's very, very strange.
It also sets it up for him to be ridiculed for being anti-Semite or whatever if he like rebuts it and says, no, I didn't do that. So now it's kind of like he's publicly in support of Israel now.
Well, it's like when people leak that they are going to be put up for a cabinet position, like inside of the Trump administration or something like that. You know, there was all these like rumors floating around about different people being put up and they sort of trial balloon float them out there in the press. So you're putting this out there publicly for a reason, a reason. He's, wildly disliked at home, Netanyahu is, by a mass number of individuals. So why do this? So I have it on good authority that Trump is not a fan of Netanyahu and at all. Now, you'll recall in December, Trump admitted in an AP interview that he said, quote, I don't think Netanyahu ever wanted to make a deal. I thought the Palestinians were impossible and that the Israelis would do anything to make a peace deal. I found that not to be true. Trump said, end quote. So Trump admitting that Netanyahu was essentially lying to him. Then Trump posted a video of Jeffrey Sachs calling Netanyahu a deep state, a deep, dark son of a bitch. And Trump didn't invite him to the inauguration. No invitation. Yet he did invite Javier Milei from Argentina, Giorgia Meloni, and others.
Well, the Israeli government says it's because Netanyahu had prostate procedures. That's why he didn't go, and that he had otherwise planned to.
Okay.
So who's saving face here, or other body parts?
So last night, Tucker Carlson did one of the most fascinating interviews that I've watched in a long time with Kurt Mills. Kurt Mills is the executive director of the American Conservative and a foreign policy expert. He talked openly about how Israel uses media proxies to smear Americans who challenge Israel. And he laid out exactly how they do it using the press. And he walked through step by step. I encourage you all to watch it. But he also pointed out how the Trump-Netanyahu relationship is one of the greatest mysteries right now to journalists. Does Trump hate Bibi, or does he like him? Watch.
I think realistic expectations would be we get some of what we want. We don't get everything we want because we're not in charge of the United States.
But there's a tension here. I mean, so first, the relationship between the president of the United States and the prime minister of Israel is extremely unclear. Yes. I don't think maybe only the two of them know. They have disagreed since at least 2020 over the election, but they probably disagreed beforehand over strikes in Iran. The last time you and I spoke publicly was over the Soleimani strike in January of 2020. And there were, since then, reporting in the last 5 years has come out that the two of them disagreed over that. Trump felt that the Israelis didn't do their part, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for years, for at least half a decade, the well has been poisoned between Trump and Netanyahu. Doesn't mean the relationship is done, but there's been an atmosphere of mistrust. And
well, he's had that. I've watched closely and interviewed him more than once, and for moving on 30 years, because he's been in and out of office, and he's had complicated relations with every president.
Yeah. I mean, I think the key thing to understand for your listeners, anyone who's not turning this off because we're getting into the depths of Israeli politics here, but Netanyahu's situation is unstable.
Yes.
A supermajority of Israelis want him out. They want him to resign. He does not want to resign because if he resigns, he may go to prison.
Right.
And also, he's been a power achiever for 30 years. And
Yes.
I've noticed that people who do that often don't like to quit.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Okay. So he doesn't want to quit for both reasons of his freedom and, the way of his life.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So
Pretty recognizable syndrome, I would say.
Yes.
Not confined to BB.
It's international.
Yes, it is.
Someone in the chat says this seems like CNN. What in the world?
What, Tucker's interview sounds like CNN?
What
world?
CNN are you watching on Bizarro World where they tell the truth?
What world? Yeah, what CNN are you watching where Tucker Carlson is basically exposing the deep state like neocons who are literally involved in all of this? Like,
Who are trying to provoke us into a war for Israel, like we already did after 9/11 in Iraq. But
Iran, pushing us towards Iran.
Has CNN apologized for being pro-Iraq war? When did that happen?
No, they made their money off of it.
They
Anyway.
orchestrated that war.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I missed it. Sorry.
Meanwhile, now that Trump and Putin appear to be closing in on a peace agreement, neocons and warmongers are planning to deploy at least 100,000 NATO soldiers into Ukraine. Now, this plan, according to The Telegraph, has been in the works secretly for the past few months. Here's the Newsweek take on it. Ukraine's NATO allies in secret talks to deploy peacekeepers, according to a report. Now, you'll recall we covered here on the show last summer how NATO says that over 300,000 troops were now on high readiness and ready to be deployed. Then they even released a whole video saying it was upwards of 500,000 troops that are ready to go if needed across Europe and into Ukraine. So as many as 300,000. First of all, that was something that's a number that Putin would never allow that to happen. 300,000 NATO soldiers on Russia's border. Sorry, not going to happen. This is all, we're hearing these reports at the exact same moment that Putin and Trump are ready to align on a peace agreement. It's interesting timing, isn't it? When you have these warmongers in Washington, D.C. and a part of Europe and in Europe and NATO who are pushing to now send hundreds of thousands of peacekeepers into Ukraine. Peacekeepers. Zelensky, of course, appears to be in on this as well, the NATO plan. He keeps letting the cat out of the bag. Maybe he's he's too coked up to keep this a secret. So in an interview, Zelensky is insisting not just on large peacekeeping forces, but a very large peacekeeping force. He says that Ukraine, quote, needs contingents with a very strong number of soldiers when he spoke at Davos, and that number from all Europeans, 200,000, is a minimum. A minimum. He says, otherwise, it's nothing. We need 200,000 and minimum. And then he later clarified that he wasn't just fixed to that 200,000 number, but he basically says 200,000 is like, it could be more, it could be less. But if we reduce my army or the army by 200,000, 300,000, 500,000, this will mean that we need other troops instead. So needs NATO forces.
Let's remind ourselves that that is approximately the number of people that he has lost of his own people.
Yeah, but 800,000 have been killed now in Ukraine.
I mean, official numbers are somewhere between 200,000 and 500,000. So what he's saying is that my army's crap. I've lost them all. They died because we don't have real leadership and we failed negotiation at peace. So they all died. So you step in and die next. Europeans, let's go.
MVC in our chat says, yeah, we need more meat for the meat grinder. It's disgusting. Yeah, exactly. So you're going to use NATO forces, Europeans, and Americans? Go ahead, Phil.
What is this? Zelensky insists that NATO build up these troops. Like that's like me like insisting what you guys have for dinner tonight. It's like, it's not my meal. It's not my problem. Like, how does that work? Like you can, he's not part of NATO.
But that's what narcissists do.
Yeah. And you know, Trump called him out last week, or over the, I think it was Thursday night, he called him out and said, you know, Zelensky's no angel at all. And this war likely wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Zelensky. So there's no love lost there. The writing is on the wall. So the warmongers seem, and the neocons seem to be really aligning with NATO and Zelensky. And they're really trying to separate themselves and drive, it seems to me, to drive a wedge between Trump and this peace agreement.
Zelensky, by the way, was the premise of Trump's impeachment. How does he think that he can curry favor with Trump when the phone call with Zelensky is what got him impeached one of two times? And then now he thinks he can make demands of Trump? Again, typical behavior of a narcissist who was fed his ego by Vogue, by the Wall Street Journal, by the New York Times. So he thinks this because he's delusional and the media has created this monster.
Heidi in our chat says redacted. Yeah, like Trudeau would send Canadians to the front line as well. Right, exactly. So Trudeau is all. So again, you can see where the warmongers and the war machine is aligning itself right now. And so, of course, NATO calls them peacekeepers, but you're not an idiot. If you watch this show, NATO has a long history of peacekeeping.
That's also what they're called in the Hunger Games.
It's just another name.
Worth noting.
Yeah, it's just another name for the word terrorism. Take Operation Gladio, for instance. How many of you know about Operation Gladio? How many of you guys are familiar with that? I'll summarize it for you. So basically, Operation Gladio was a plan by the CIA and MI6 to use secret NATO armies to create false flag attacks all over Western Europe. And they then could blame the Soviet Union for these false flag attacks. And that would, of course, then, so basically, yes, launch terror attacks against your own people. Kill your own people so that people are rallied around this idea of going to war against the Soviet Union. It's well documented, by the way. I'll tell you in a second. So if that sounds familiar, the idea of using something called strategy of tension, that's what it's called, strategy of tension. And it was used to keep you and I in a state of tension about Russia. Do you remember the 1980s? Weren't we like in a tension all of the 1980s? And manipulate public opinion, justify stricter security measures, take away your civil liberties, your freedoms because of bad Russia, bad Soviet Union. So you need to give up your liberties, your civil liberties, because of Russia? Okay, so that's what these NATO secret terror armies were doing for years under Operation Gladio. And and other neocon political processes and policies were put in place as a result of it. So the neocons win when you're scared. Don't be scared. We shouldn't be at war. We should be at peace. We are an anti-war show. Anyway, this book is great, by the way, NATO's Secret Armies by Daniel Genzer. I highly recommend you pick it up. It details in great detail about Operation Gladio and the terrorism in Western Europe under NATO's secret armies. If you want to educate yourself more on this, of course, the Western media won't tell you about it. NATO is supposed to be this great patriotic organization, a defensive organization, which is just a load of horseshit, of course. They're not a defensive organization at all. It really lays out how the CIA and MI6 after World War II and all of these countries in Western Europe, launched right-wing terrorism, essentially. And here's how Politico put it last week. With the United States President Donald Trump promising to end the war in Ukraine fast, even if it means ceding territory to Russia, Europe is scrambling to figure out what role it will play beyond upping its defense spending and supplying weapons to Kiev. One of the models being discussed is deploying a Europe-led peacekeeping outfit to enforce any potential ceasefire. Talks about European peacekeepers have started in earnest, but no one has figured out how to move the conversation forward. By the way, Russia knew about this plan months ago. As we reported here on the show, their intelligence had told them that NATO was already planning this whole 100,000 troop invasion of Ukraine. Watch.
Given the obvious lack of prospects for a strategic defeat of Russia on the battlefield, NATO is increasingly inclined toward the need to freeze the Ukraine conflict. The West sees the implementation of such a scenario as an opportunity to restore the Ukrainian armed forces' combat capability and thoroughly prepare Kyiv for a retaliation attempt. In order to accomplish these tasks, the West will be required to actually occupy Ukraine. Obviously, this will be done under the guise of deploying a peacekeeping force in the country.
According to the SPR, NATO is increasingly looking to freeze the conflict to give themselves enough time to rebuild Ukraine's shattered military and prepare it for revenge.
Okay.
That's exactly what the plan is. Of course, neocons.
Cosmos in the chat says NATO defended Yugoslavia to pieces. Ask them how that went. Is that a template you want to follow?
A defensive organization is NATO, right? Of course, neocons and warmongers in DC paint this as a benefit to American businesses. Like, you should be on board. This is how neocons always pitch it to you. You guys should be on board with this because this is going to help Americans. Like, here's Colorado warmonger Jason Crow. Listen.
About how this bill is structured and how it provides that support. It provides that support by spending over half of the money right here in the United States to U.S. businesses and U.S. workers from places like Texas and North Carolina and Pennsylvania and Colorado, all throughout this nation, who will be building the equipment and supplies that we'll be sending to our military, because that's another important part of this. Our military sends our old equipment to Ukraine, and Ukraine uses it with great effect.
Okay. Or British intelligence operatives, aka propagandists, who are working in Ukraine, saying now is the perfect time to launch a massive counterattack against Russia. NATO forces would help that cause, of course, tremendously. Russia is running out of weapons right now, according to these British intelligence sources. Where have we heard this before? Listen.
The little man in Moscow has talked about NATO troops in Ukraine. And NATO joining Ukraine being one of the reasons for them invading. I mean, he's come up with many reasons for invading as we know, but that's one of the main ones for him. This would be an ideal time to counterattack if available forces are put into the right place, of course. It doesn't take anyone with half a brain, I think I just about qualify for that, to know when the right time is to counterattack, militarily speaking, of course. And when the enemy is running out of resources, then that's the time to strike. I'm sure there's some people here planning that now.
Yeah, they are planning that right now. So, Ukraine is out of forces. You need right now to launch a counterattack against Russia because they're running out of weapons and munitions. So now would be the time for Ukraine to receive hundreds of thousands of NATO troops. And by the way, I should point out that all you need to do is jump on Telegram to see families who are sharing the fact that their NATO son has been killed in Ukraine. There's lists. I think the numbers are now over 60,000, but we don't hear about it in the West at all. NATO forces, NATO men who are fighting for NATO and on behalf of NATO in Ukraine who have been killed. Now, those aren't official numbers, but all Ukrainian, Telegram channels are filled with families sharing the death of their son who fought in Ukraine on behalf of France, the British government. But we don't hear those numbers at all. And we've reported here on this show that we know that Americans have been killed inside of Ukraine. And what are those families being told? What NDAs are they forced to sign in order to receive like pension and benefits, military benefits, after their son was killed in Ukraine fighting against Russia? But you won't hear about it because they've had to sign gag orders and NDAs. So we'll continue to follow this as these neocons continue to try to undermine peace agreements in the Middle East and Ukraine.
Well, what they're doing when they sell this to you, that, hey, you can get a job making bombs and then it's good for our economy, is called the broken window fallacy. That was debunked by classical economist Frederick Bastiat. And it's the idea that if someone breaks a window, then someone in your town gets to replace it and make money. But then your economy can never grow from non-artificial,
like fake breakery.
Right, exactly.
Like fake.
And so it actually is, it's never really good for an economy to go around breaking windows in your town just so that you can boost the economy, rebuilding your own town, because you can never do anything else.
Well, as Kurt Mills pointed out last night in that interview with Tucker, again, I highly recommend you guys go and watch that interview. And it's really fascinating. But he basically says the same thing. We cannot secure our southern border and protect our homeland in the United States if we go to war with Iran.
Right.
If we go to war with Russia, it's game over for the United States. And we will not be able to lower grocery prices, secure our border, round up illegal immigrants in the United States. All of our resources and troops will be tapped for that other war against Iran.
Anyhow, okay. I was going to launch into a tangent about economics, and I'm going to refrain myself. This is me.
It'll be a 4-hour show.
Refraining myself. Okay. Well, the rebranding of Bill Gates is happening right before our eyes, and I hope you are paying attention. In a new interview, Bill Gates is now saying that, autism, it's not really.
As he said, within 24 hours, there would be a settlement on Ukraine. Of course, that has long passed now. We've seen Donald Trump actually adopt what seems to be a belligerent posture around Ukraine and toward Russia. And what he is saying is he's giving Vladimir Putin, giving Russia an ultimatum. And I wanted to actually play what he was saying when he was signing his executive orders.
Plan to speak with President Putin soon. What about and what's your message?
Yeah, I would, but he's told me he wants to make a deal. I mean, Zelensky wants to make a deal. I don't know if Putin does. He might not. I don't know. He should make a deal. I think he's destroying Russia by not making a deal.
That's disrespectful.
I think Russia's going to be in big trouble. You take a look at their economy. You take a look at the inflation in Russia. So I would hope, I would get along with him great, and I would hope he wants to make a deal.
Mr. President, are you keeping U.S. sanctions on Russia until he makes a deal?
Well, sanctions or tariffs. I think the word tariff is much better because it keeps your dollar stronger. I think tariffs are more effective. I mean, I use sanctions on Iran. Iran was broke.
The important thing here, Ben, is, and this is a position he's repeated, is that he will sanction Russia. He will tariff Russia if Russia doesn't come to the table. Your thoughts on this? I mean, Russia is a preeminent BRICS member, leader, one of the major leaders of BRICS. And Donald Trump is now adopting a position, it seems, of an ultimatum rather than a genuine and serious attempt at negotiations. Your thoughts?
Well, Trump is very, very arrogant. I mean, that's always been clear, but especially in his second term now, we keep, if you listen to the comments he's made signing these executive orders, and he's just signing so many that all he does is sit and sign executive orders because all this stuff was written by think tanks in Washington funded by billionaires. But Trump keeps saying things like, they'll give in. China will give in. He said that recently. He said they're a paper tiger, essentially, that the U.S. is the most powerful country. he really overstates the power of the U.S. and he really thinks, as he claimed in his inauguration speech, that the U.S. is no longer in decline, when everyone around the world can see clearly that the U.S. is in very significant decline. And you mentioned BRICS. I mean, he gave this bizarre response to a journalist who was asking about Spain and about how Trump is pressuring countries in NATO to increase their military spending to 5% of GDP, over double the previous target of 2% of GDP. That is a massive increase in military spending. And he was asked about Spain, and Spain doesn't spend. Trump complained that Spain doesn't spend enough on its military. And then he also said that Spain is a BRICS country, which it's not. I mean, that's not true. There are no European countries in BRICS. BRICS is led by the Global South. I mean, you know, Russia is now basically part of Asia, Eurasia more broadly. It's been kicked out of Europe, right? So that was a very bizarre comment. And then he said, you know, Spain is part of BRICS. And by the way, I'm going to put 100% tariffs on BRICS countries so they can't trade with the United States. I mean, okay, they can't trade with the United States, so they'll trade with each other. Again, he has this idea that if countries can't trade with the U.S., oh no, there's tariffs. It's the end of the world. I mean, the world does not revolve around the U.S. The U.S. economy is actually much weaker than he thinks it is. And this brings us to Russia. So, of course, Russia's part of BRICS. Trump has constantly threatened BRICS. But what is he going to do? Put more sanctions on Russia? I mean, Russia's already one of the most sanctioned countries in history. Well, he just said in that comment that he's going to instead do tariffs. Okay, how much trade is Russia doing with the United States? Very little. So Russia will do less trade with the U.S. and more trade with China and India, which is what it's been doing. So again, Trump thinks that tariffs and sanctions and the dollar are this silver bullet and that there are no alternatives to the United States. I mean, he's living in the 1980s still, when the U.S. economy was very powerful. It's much weaker today. It's been deindustrialized. It has very few manufacturing capabilities. China produces everything. The U.S. produces nothing. And even in high tech, China has caught up very quickly. Even this week, there's news that China has released AI models that are better and cheaper than U.S. AI models, like an open AI. So, I mean, I think in the next few years, it's going to be made very clear to Trump that the U.S. is not as powerful as he thinks it is. And this thing about claiming that he was going to end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours, or at one point he actually said that he would end it before he even became president, you know, and during the transition period. Obviously, that didn't happen. Trump, again, has this very arrogant idea that he can just force everyone to make a deal. And of course, when he says that, it's always a deal that's advantageous to the U.S. But a lot of these countries, they have interests that are more important than making a deal with the U.S. Russia, he thinks that Russia just is begging the U.S. for a deal. But Russia is not going to give in to some of its core demands, which is that Ukraine can never join NATO. Ukraine must be demilitarized. The Donbass is never going to be part of Ukraine, yet alone Crimea. It's not even up for debate. And yet Trump thinks he can just pressure these countries and force them to make a deal because he thinks that somehow he is uniquely good at making deals when everyone before him was just stupid. I mean, this is the same thing with Iran. He says, I'm going to make a new deal with Iran. Why in the hell would Iran possibly make a new deal with the United States, especially with Trump, after he was the one who tore up the previous deal? Or another example is TikTok. Trump, it is true, and this is actually very smart politically on Trump's behalf. It was very smart. It was really stupid of Biden. You know, Trump originally tried to ban TikTok by signing an executive order in 2020. And then U.S. courts blocked that order. And then Biden came in and he banned TikTok on the second last day of his administration. And Trump played this for political points and he unbanned TikTok. However, there's a big asterisk there. If you read the order that Trump signed, it's only for 75 days. So Trump again thinks that he can pressure the company ByteDance to sell TikTok, one of its most valuable properties. He thinks that he can pressure them because he's uniquely good at making deals. And that's why it's only 75 days. And if ByteDance doesn't sell TikTok, TikTok will be banned again. But in order to make a deal with another side, you have to give them something they want. What is the U.S. going to give to ByteDance? Nothing. Well, access to the U.S. market. But TikTok doesn't need the US market. TikTok has many other countries. The biggest market for TikTok is Indonesia, not the United States. Similarly, for Russia, what is Trump going to offer Russia if he wants to make a deal? He's saying, okay, we're going to put tariffs on. I mean, that's not going to do anything.
Offering.
Look how many sanctions are on Russia.
On his Truth Social, we can read exactly what he said. He said, "I'm not looking to hurt Russia. I love the Russian people and always had a very good relationship with President Putin." Not true. And this despite the radical left's Russia, Russia, Russia hoax. We must never forget Russia helped us win the Second World War, losing almost 60 million lives. All that being said, I'm going to do Russia, whose economy is failing, and President Putin a very big favor. Settle now and stop this ridiculous war. It's only going to get worse. If we don't make a deal soon, I have no other choice but to put high levels of taxes, tariffs, and sanctions on anything sold by Russia to the US and various other participating countries. Let's get this war, which never would have started if I were president, over with. We can do it the easy way or the hard way, and the easy way is always better. Let's make a deal. So it appears that punishment, Ben, is the way that Donald Trump believes that he's going to get a deal on this, or perhaps he doesn't believe he can get a deal on this at all. What do you think?
No, I mean, I just looking up the data here on Russia's trade with the US, which the latest data is from 2022. So, I mean, this data is really, even if you can believe the data, which is probably exaggerated, this is from 2022. And Russia was selling the US some refined petroleum, about $5 billion. And I'm sure since then it's fallen even further. So like that is one of the easiest things to replace. There are so many countries selling petroleum. I mean, it's refined petroleum. Aren't as many, but still, I mean, it's not like the US can't get oil from somewhere else. The US is actually the world's largest oil producer at this point. So like what this idea that, again, he can just force Russia to do what the US wants with the threat of blocking off access to the US market. Russia already sells very little to the US. Russia's main trading partners are now BRICS countries. There's been a huge shift in the past few years, especially with the proxy war in Ukraine. And Russia has replaced a lot of its trade with the West with trade with China, India, Turkey, with other countries in Asia. So again, Trump, he's living in this little bubble. Also, it's so funny when you read these posts that he makes on his website. It just looks crazy, like with all of the capital letters and stuff. It looks like one of those spam emails they send you about like you need to act now or your computer is gonna blow up. So again, when you're negotiating with another side, you have to offer them something. What is Trump going to offer Russia? Well, if he's willing to accept those demands that Ukraine will never become part of NATO, that Ukraine will be demilitarized, that the Donbass and Crimea will permanently remain part of Russia, I'm sure Russia will be more than happy, very happy to make a deal. But is Trump going to go along with that deal? Maybe Trump personally would be willing to do so. He probably doesn't even really know what the Donbass is. But let's also keep in mind the people around Trump. I already mentioned Marco Rubio is now Secretary of State. Rubio is a very hawkish anti-Russia voice. I mean, a lot of Rubio's rhetoric has focused on countering China. In the Senate hearing that he gave in order to be confirmed, it was 3 hours, and he was just constantly fear-mongering about China, 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 China. He called China the biggest threat to the U.S., etc. He was fear-mongering about Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua. Okay, so we know this guy's a neocon. But Rubio is also very anti-Russia. Okay, look at Donald Trump's national security advisor, who hasn't been officially confirmed yet, but he very likely will be confirmed, Mike Waltz. Another neocon, another anti-Russia voice in the administration. So Trump is being advised by people who are very anti-Russia, even if he would be willing to make this kind of deal. I mean, I'm still pretty skeptical. Maybe he will at the end of the day, but it's, threatening taxes on Russia. How is he going to put taxes on Russia? I mean, he means tariffs, but again, What is the point of putting tariffs on a country if because of sanctions, they're doing almost no trade with you anyway?
Ben, talk about tariffs, particularly from a geopolitical economic standpoint. because Trump loves to wield this idea of tariffs versus sanctions. He says sanctions bad, mainly because he wants to put that on Biden as the primary tool that Biden was using against Russia in particular, but really worldwide. But tariffs good. So talk about tariffs. I've heard that they could potentially backfire on those doing the tariffing.
Yeah, they definitely could backfire. A quick note on sanctions first. Sanctions are, of course, bipartisan. It's become the kind of main form of war waged by the U.S. because most of the wars that the U.S. wages are actually economic wars. 1/3 of all countries on earth are facing some form of U.S. sanctions, including 60% of low-income countries, of poor countries. And this has been completely bipartisan. Go back to the Bush administration in particular and the so-called war on terror. There was a massive explosion in the use of sanctions. And then every president since has only increased the number. And you can look at a chart of the number of sanctions, and it just keeps going up. It's a straight line, or it's not a straight line. It's a line that goes up, right? But consistently. So when Trump was president, he also massively expanded the use of sanctions, especially on countries like Venezuela and Cuba and Iran. So, by the way, when Trump tore up the Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA, what was the Iran nuclear deal? It was an agreement to lift the illegal unilateral sanctions that the U.S. had put on Iran in return for Iran agreeing to halt its nuclear program. So what did Trump do? He ended the deal unilaterally, which violated international law because the deal was written into international law through a UN Security Council resolution. But the point is that Trump ended the deal and he put tons of sanctions on Iran. What did he do to Venezuela? He put tons of sanctions on Venezuela, an economic blockade in Venezuela. He put hundreds more sanctions on Cuba as well, another country that's one of the most sanctioned countries on earth. So this is bipartisan. Of course, Biden also massively, again, look at the chart. It just keeps going up. Biden came in and he massively increased the number of sanctions on Russia, right? So now Trump says, okay, instead of sanctions, I'm going to do tariffs, partially because so many of these countries are so heavily sanctioned, they can't even put on more sanctions. I mean, what can they sanction even more in Russia? Everything's sanctioned. What can they sanction more in Iran? Everything's sanctioned. Venezuela, everything's sanctioned. So now he's saying tariffs. Okay, how do tariffs work? Trump wants people to believe that other countries pay for tariffs. That's not true. Tariffs are paid by importers in the United States. It is a tax on imports. That tax is borne by consumers in the United States in the form of higher costs of imported goods. And given that the U.S. deindustrialized its economy and produces almost nothing locally, that means that everything will become more expensive. Everything that's imported, which is most things, right? Now, defenders of Trump's tariffs will argue that there were other mechanisms by which other countries bore some of the cost, not all of the cost, but some of the costs of tariffs. So as an example, it's not wrong that when Trump put tariffs on China during his trade war during his first term, that the Chinese currency, the renminbi, also known as the yuan, did fall against the dollar. And as the renminbi fell against the dollar, it decreased the cost of Chinese exports, making them more competitive. Therefore, they were cheaper. So even though there were tariffs on them in the US, the cost increase was not that high domestically in the US because of the depreciation of the renminbi. That's actually true. Now, it doesn't account for 100% of the cost of the tariffs. So there are many different products, for instance, washing machines, that there are studies that showed that washing machines became more expensive in the US because of the Trump tariffs. But at the same time, this is ironic because Trump accuses China of supposedly manipulating its currency, of intentionally devaluing the yuan against the dollar to make Chinese exports more competitive. Well, he's complaining about that, which China says it doesn't do. And yet now he's putting more tariffs on China, which is going to lead to a further depreciation of the yuan against the dollar and increase the competitiveness of Chinese exports when China has $1 trillion surplus. So again, I mean, everything that Trump's doing is just completely contradictory. He says we want to decrease the surplus that China has, its trade surplus, and we want it to appreciate its currency, but he's putting tariffs on that's leading to a further depreciation of the currency and likely an increase in China's trade surplus. He thinks tariffs are this panacea that can solve everything. And he and some billionaire friends like Mark Andreessen, who's a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, they claim that they can replace the income tax with tariffs, which is just mathematically completely false, totally bogus. Of course, they say that because they want to end taxes on the rich. And they say, oh, we'll replace it with tariffs, which is not true. The deficit will continue to massively explode. So, I mean, tariffs are not some magical panacea. Tariffs as a tool can work. I'm actually not against tariffs in certain circumstances. I'm not a free trader at all. You and I are not free traders. It's the neoliberals who are free traders. However, just putting up tariffs on everything is not a magical solution to making your economy stronger. Tariffs work in particular industries when you are trying to develop your local manufacturing capabilities, and you can create a competitive industry, and then after it becomes competitive internationally, you can lift the tariffs. So it's no longer artificially protected by this lack of competition internationally. This is what every advanced, wealthy country did. This is what the United States did. Ironically, it was Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury of the US, who was known for promoting protectionism. It used to be known as the American School of Economics, which is very ironic because now the American school would be associated with neoliberalism, with Chicago, right? The University of Chicago. But go back to Alexander Hamilton. The whole idea was that the government should have state banking, which is what China has, that the government should heavily invest in public infrastructure, which is what China does, not the US, that the government should protect local manufacturing industries to develop a competitive advantage so they could actually compete with other established industries in other dominant economies. This is what the US did. This is what European countries did. This is what Japan did, what South Korea did. It's what China has done. But the thing is, Trump claims that you just put on tariffs on everything. That's not the solution. Okay, so he puts tariffs on everything, so then everything becomes more expensive. So, for instance, Trump says he wants to put on 60% tariffs on all Chinese goods. Okay, that means not only Chinese electric vehicles, which already have 100% tariffs on them, that also means shoes and textiles made in China. It also means toasters made in China. So is the U.S. planning on making a bunch of factories in the U.S. to make shoes and T-shirts and toasters? Of course not. They're not going to do that. It would never be competitive. It would be too expensive. So tariffs work if you're trying to do import substitution industrialization. If you're trying to replace your dependency on a foreign product through imports, and instead you want to produce those products locally. But if you're not going to produce those products locally, all you're going to have is an increase in cost, increase in price. It's going to become more expensive to import toasters and shoes and T-shirts. So, I mean, again, Trump, he just says these words, tariffs. He said he thinks I'm going to make a deal as if that's going to solve everything. It's not. And of course, we're still very on the early stages of the Trump administration, so I think people still believe him. But once we're in a few years and people see that he's not going to accomplish what he said he would, I think it'll become very obvious that this is just a superficial claim that there's a super easy, magical solution to complex problems.
The very idea, too, of approaching negotiations with Russia before even a phone call, because first of all, the Trump administration said that they've made contact with the Russian side. Russia is saying they don't necessarily agree with that. They haven't heard from them. So there hasn't really been contact established. And then there's this trend, and this was a theme also in the first Trump administration of, okay, we're going to handle things like a big businessman. We're going to be very hard on the other side and kind of squeeze them into making a deal, because that's what businesses are supposed to do, right? They're supposed to get up on their competition, but and sit on them and make them kind of cry until they give up. Well, the problem is that Russia is not a business. This conflict in Ukraine is not a business. And we already have a track record in the first Trump administration where this just didn't work.
Yeah, again, this just comes back to the very basic question. What more could he sanction or tariff? Again, there's very little trade between. The whole point of tariffs is that you use your domestic market as collateral, as leverage. Okay, so he's saying to Russia, we're going to put tariffs on you, therefore you won't be able to export to the US market. But Russia's exporting very little to the US market. And like I said, what is the main thing that Russia, even if it is still exporting little, what is it exporting? The main product it's exporting is petroleum. The US is the world's largest oil producer. It can find many alternatives to Russian petroleum. Russia doesn't need the US market to export its oil to. So tariffs for Russia, it doesn't matter. This threat of tariffs only makes sense if it actually is concerned about maintaining its access to the US market. For instance, in the case of China, yes, the threat of tariffs is more real because China still does a lot of trade with the United States, unlike Russia. Although even then, China's trade with the US is becoming less and less important over time. China's largest trading partner now is ASEAN, Southeast Asia. It trades more with ASEAN than with the US, and it trades more with the Global South and BRICS countries than with the entire West. And over time, we're seeing that further divergence, more and more economic integration of the BRICS countries, and less Chinese reliance on Western markets. So even then, the threat of tariffs on China is becoming less and less powerful over time. As for Russia, this is just, they don't care at all about the threat of US tariffs. Sanctions, again, they can't be sanctioned anymore. Trump thinks he can just pressure Russia into signing some kind of deal that's advantageous to the US, but Russia is already one of the most heavily sanctioned countries on earth. It's already been waging this engaged in this war in Ukraine against NATO. It's not against just Ukraine, it's against NATO. Russia's winning this war against NATO. They have the momentum. The leverage is on Russia's side, not on the US side. And yet Trump comes in and thinks he can just magically force Russia to come to the negotiating table. I think it's going to be very clear, again, very soon, that it's just bravado, it's just bluffing.
A few minutes ago, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation officially announced that the strategically important settlement of Velikaya Novoselka had been completely liberated by units of the group of troops under the designation Vostok. The Russian military department noted that the remaining pockets of resistance in the northern part of this town were completely destroyed on the morning of January 26. Commenting on the liberation of Velikaya Novoselka, the Russian military said that this town was liberated within 6 days, as a result of active offensive actions by units of the 40th Guards Marine Brigade, and the 5th Guards Separate Tank Brigade of the 36th Army. All these units are part of the group of troops under the designation Vostok. According to military experts, Russian troops acted very professionally during the Velikaya Novoselka liberation. It is reported that this town was taken very competently, by covering the enemy flanks, and encircling the Ukrainian grouping in the center of Velikaya Novoselka. As a result, the Russian army managed to liberate this town in a record short time, without incurring heavy losses in manpower and equipment. By the way, while the Ukrainian general staff continues to tell fairy tales about the fact that the Ukrainian army is allegedly still fighting for Velikaya Novoselka, war correspondents said that the residents of this town were happy to welcome the arrival of the Russian troops. Moreover, it is reported that during the liberation of Velikaya Novoselka, many residents of this town actively helped the Russian troops by transmitting the exact location of the Ukrainian positions to the Russian military. Thus, after Russian troops liberated Velikaya Novoselka, the Vremyevsky direction of the front officially ceased to exist. Now the Russian army is preparing a full-scale offensive on the Dnipropetrovsk region, and the liberation of the remaining territories of the Zaporizhia region. My dear truth seekers, it is worth noting that on January 26, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation announced the liberation of not only Velikaya Novoselka. According to the Russian military department, units of the group of troops under the designation center have achieved another success in the Pokrovsk direction of the front. In particular, on January 26, at 10 a.m. Moscow time, the Russian military officially announced the liberation of the settlement of Zelenoy, south of Pokrovsk. Ukrainian and Russian war correspondents also confirmed the transfer of this settlement under the control of Russian troops. According to them, even though the Ukrainian High Military Command has transferred a fairly large number of reserves to the Pokrovsk direction, the Ukrainian army has not been able to dislodge Russian units from the settlement of Zelenoy. In general, the situation of the Ukrainian army continues to deteriorate rapidly in the Pokrovsk direction of the front. At the moment, Russian troops continue to cover the city from 3 directions at once: from the south, southeast, and southwest. Moreover, over the past 3 days, dozens of Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups have begun to appear in Pokrovsk itself. In addition, Russian combat aviation intensified the bombing of Ukrainian positions in the eastern, central, and western parts of Pokrovsk. All this indicates that the Russian High Military Command is preparing for a full-scale assault on this city. It is reported that the battle for Pokrovsk may begin in the coming days. Over the past 24 hours, Russian troops have also made significant gains in the Kurakovo direction of the front. In particular, on the morning of January 26, war correspondents reported that Russian troops had managed to enter the settlement of Andriivka and gain a foothold in the northwestern part of this village. The loss of Andriivka will be a real disaster for Ukrainian troops west of Kurakovo, as this will allow the Russian army not only to attack Constantinople from the north, but also to create a so-called bag, from which it will be very difficult to get out. Thus, Russian troops continue to tighten the rope around the Ukrainian army's neck, in the Kurakovo direction. Against this backdrop, an authoritative military expert and an active duty officer of the Austrian Armed Forces, Colonel Markus Reisner, said that Kiev would most likely not be able to survive until negotiations. According to him, everything that happens on the battlefield indicates that the Ukrainian army will be completely defeated before peace negotiations begin. The Austrian colonel expressed confidence that the defense of the Ukrainian army is in death agony and could collapse at any moment. When this happens, Russian troops will escape into the operational space and will be able to move throughout Ukraine absolutely calmly. Now it becomes clear why Zelensky is literally begging the West to send troops to Ukraine. At the same time, the leader of the Kiev regime emphasizes that NATO troops should not be in western Ukraine, but on the combat contact line. The fact is that this political clown understands perfectly well that he and his gang will have to flee Ukraine as soon as the Russian army enters the operational space. the clear successes of the Russian army have also started to gain recognition in the United States. In particular, on January 25, an authoritative American military expert and a retired U.S. Army captain, Megan Mobbs, said that the war in Ukraine proved that the U.S. Army is absolutely not ready to fight against such professional armies as the Russian one. According to her, the experience of the last wars in Afghanistan and Iraq has not helped American soldiers fighting on the side of Ukraine against Russian troops. Megan Mobbs admitted that she had talked to dozens of American soldiers who fought on the side of the Ukrainian army. In the conversation with the American soldiers, they all expressed confusion about how to fight the Russian army. According to Americans who participated in combat operations in Afghanistan and Iraq, the war in Ukraine is a completely different level of fighting. According to them, they felt like noobs on the battlefield in Ukraine, who needed protection from a more powerful enemy. Against this backdrop, Megan Mobbs called on the U.S. authorities to preserve the experience gained in Ukraine and implement it in the U.S. Army. Other American experts also supported Megan Mobbs' statement. According to them, American soldiers should learn how to fight against professional, modern armies, and forget the experience gained in fighting against ordinary farmers from Afghanistan and Iraq. Moreover, they also recognized that the war in Ukraine has turned the Russian army into the most experienced and powerful military force in the world. According to them, the Russian army is the world's only military force that is capable not only of effectively defending itself, but also of capturing large cities and towns.
Issues that are resulting from that there in the DRC. And we are very, very honored to be joined here once again on the show by Kambale Musavuli, who is an analyst with the Center for Research on the Congo-Kinshasa. Kambale, as always, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for keep shining the light on the Congo.
Listen, it's all we can do here. It's critically important that people need to know. You know, this morning, of course, there's and today a lot of concern in the eastern part of the Congo because of the ongoing offensive by M23 backed by Rwanda. Many fears that the main city of eastern Congo, Goma, could fall. You know, I mean, in a way, I guess I wonder what you make of the fact that the conflict is ongoing. I mean, we've had a couple false dawns of alleged, peace negotiations happening between DRC and Rwanda, mediated by Angola. Most of that did not take place. And it just seems like this M23 is perpetually on the march and keeping the region in conflict. And I just wonder your view on where things stand now.
I mean, I think when we are looking at the situation in the Congo and we hear the different names and acronyms of militia groups, it makes it hard for people to really understand who are these people, right? Even when we call them the M23, it gives them some legitimacy, right? The M23 are fighting the Congolese government, the Congolese government forces, but we must be very clear who they are. This is the Rwandan Defense Force. The UN report that was just published in December of 2024, the second report they published in 2024, clearly documents, once again, that the Rwandan military is supporting these rebels and providing them with logistical support, arms, and so on. And when we think about the Rwandan government, Rwanda is a country with its government providing support to a rebel group, one should ask, why is Rwanda supporting rebel groups in the Congo? Why are they providing them weapons and support? It's very simple. It's to get access to Congo's mineral resources at a very cheap price. The displaced population, bring in population to take control of the land that's been vacated by the millions of Congolese who've been displaced, and commit heinous crimes, which according to the United Nations, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and possible genocide if proven in a competent court. So we know who's committing these crimes. We know who's backing them. And we also know Rwanda, a small country, probably in terms of their population, they came the size of the Congo, about 50 million people. Congo has about 120 million citizens. That we know that they could not do this without the backing of the United States. And there is a country in the world that does the same thing. That's Israel, right? Israel has been killing Palestinians with no accountability, backed by US taxpayers' money. And the Israel of Africa is Rwanda, committing these crimes while not being held accountable. Now, you started by saying that Goma is about to be taken by rebels. There is this fear and populations are being displaced. But as we have this conversation about Goma being taken, we have to superimpose it to what is happening right now in Davos, right? The president of the Congo is in Davos with John Kerry, where they are discussing extending the so-called Lobito corridor from the Zambia-Angola border all the way up to the eastern part of Congo, right? The Congolese president is seeking about $1 billion to do so. And surprisingly, as this discussion is taking place, we see a flare in the attacks from the rebels. And what I've noticed over the years is that when there are major actions taking place in the Congo, rebels always push the Congolese government to go into the negotiating table so that they have to have a say. So what is this Lobito corridor about? This Lobito corridor is about getting access to copper, to cobalt, to lithium that Congo has, right? So if they have to extend it all the way to the northeast, right to Kolwezi, we have one of the largest reserve of lithium in the world at the Manono mine, right? That we know that is what's existent. But how do you put that in the context of what's happening around the globe? At the same time, Donald Trump has just said that he's going to invest $500 billion for AI infrastructure, artificial intelligence infrastructure in the United States. The US cannot compete in AI without having access to raw materials. And guess where these raw materials are coming from? From the heart of the African continent, and it's being discussed at Davos while rebels are threatening to take over the city of Goma. So that's the geopolitics of how to look at what is happening there, that the Congolese, since the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, have continuously fought to regain control of the land and resources for the benefit of the Congolese people. But at every stage they try to do so through different actors, sometimes Congolese actors, sometimes neighbor countries such as Rwanda and Uganda, sometimes multinationals, and sometimes these conferences at Davos where Congolese citizens are not being part of the decision of the Lobito corridor, are finding out that the minerals are going to be controlled by foreign interests. So that is what is at stake in the Congo as we look at these M23 rebels threatening to take over the city of Goma.
And Kambale, can you explain where the Congolese government is on this? Is that are Congolese authorities even capable of fighting back? Are they fighting back? What's the situation on the ground in terms of pushing back against M23?
The Congolese people, even beyond the government, can fight back. But we have a few challenges. One is even how Congolese law is written, right? So people always wonder about why can't Congolese just pick up a gun and fight? We don't have the right to have weapons, right? As citizens to protect ourselves. The laws are much differently. We have an army. Our army is composed of former rebels. So the rebels of yesterday, through the peace negotiations, decisions come out as saying that we have to mix the army. So there was an accord where the rebels of yesterday are now generals wearing Congolese army uniform. When we even speaking about the M23 rebels today, their commanders were part of the Congolese army in past peace accords, and they've continued to commit crimes as well. We also have a challenge with the Congolese bourgeoisie, right? The Congolese bourgeoisie have their own self-interest. So on one hand, there is a city being threatened to be taken over by rebels, the M23 rebels. On the other hand, you have the president of the Congo at Davos You have the Minister of Communication of the Congo in Paris to meet French entrepreneurs, French enterprises and businesses to invest in the Congo. And you have the President of the National Assembly in Vietnam also discussing businesses, right? That you can see that the interest is not even to bring an end to the conflict, but who will bring an end to the conflict? I do believe that Congolese have to play a role. They are playing a role in bringing an end to the conflict. But the Congo's conflict is not just a Congolese affair. When we are fighting soldiers, Rwanda Defense Force soldiers, who are actually have equipment to shoot down drones, right? It's not an easy thing as saying, what is the Congolese army saying? And what am I talking about, right? The Congolese government bought 4 Chinese drones, the C4, CH4 drones. And 3 of them were put out of commission by rebels shooting down the drones. I mean, did these rebels buy it at Walmart or eBay? No. I mean, they got it directly from the Rwandan government, the Rwandan military. And where did the Rwandan military get anti-drone equipment? We know that they got it from Poland, because Poland announced that they sold this anti-drone radar to the Rwandan government, thanks to the EU support of the Rwandan government in 2023 and 24. They gave them over 20 million euros of military equipment to the Rwanda regime. So why is Rwanda being supported, right? I keep saying Rwanda, an African country being supported by Western nations. But they are actually the neo-colonial agents on the continent. They are the proxy mercenaries for Western interests. For example, our people in Mozambique know the devastating role Rwandan soldiers are doing in Mozambique. One, protecting French interests, Total, the oil company, and also other missions across the continent, like in Mali, in Central African Republic. So when Western nation, Europe or the United States, need to do certain things on the African continent, they rely on the African partners, such as Rwanda, such as Uganda, such as Kenya. So Congolese are not fighting just the Rwandan army, right? They're also fighting their backers. And that's also, if you have to think about what's happening in Palestine, as Palestinians are fighting for self-determination and liberation, they're not just fighting the Israeli military. They're actually fighting also the US military, which is providing this equipment. Because of that, it makes it very hard to stop the conflict. We do believe that in terms of reining in Rwanda, we will require a lot of Africans to take part of the discussion. SADC countries have played a role in putting pressure, but this issue has to be seen as an African affair and have more people engaged in holding Rwanda accountable while Congolese are dealing with the internal issues to solve the challenges with the compradors that they have in the country.
Well, you mentioned the compradors and the other elements of the bourgeoisie leading the country, and I want to ask you about another issue that has made a lot of news, and that is the at least possibility of mass executions. I believe it's 170 people facing execution. I know it's been an issue that popular movements in the Congo have raised quite a bit around state of emergencies and things like that, and the way repression has been used. Human rights groups are speaking out, but maybe give people some context to why a mass execution wave is being carried out, and then I'd be curious your thoughts about sort of how it fits into this broader picture you're painting.
Definitely. In the context of war, and we've seen that also in Ukraine, oppressive government also use draconian laws to rein in their citizens. So on one hand, Congo is fighting a war to stop rebels backed by our neighbors. On the other hand, the Congolese government used this moment to pull out a moratorium on death penalty. Congo, by law, has death penalty, but for the past 20 years, there's been a moratorium where death penalty will not be used. But in the context of war, the Congolese government has reinstituted the law, saying that they will use it for people who are committing violent crimes or traitors who are collaborating with the rebels. So to say they may be soldiers and others threatening, being traitors in the government. But that's not how this law is being used now, and it's very worrisome. What is being presented in the press is that the Congolese justice system, through its justice minister, have launched a campaign to arrest young people who are part of gangs. And I think El Salvador had to deal with that too. And they've arrested hundreds of them, young gang members, tried them, and found them guilty of heinous crimes. And many of them have committed crimes. And they are all awaiting capital punishment, meaning they're on death row right now. But at the same time that this is happening, there are people, we wonder why they are on death row. We have a case of a young person who is not a street kid in the province of Equateur, who is on death row right now as a gang member. So we're wondering how he ended up. Not only that, last year in the Congo, there was an attempted coup where hundreds of people were arrested. There was an IDF soldier arrested with 2 other Americans arrested, and then others were killed. So with those arrested, they are also awaiting death penalty. They have been sentenced. But in that group, there is one person who was arrested after this coup from what we saw in the court case for having a picture with the coup leader. So they found a picture of him with the coup leader, and they created an association of him with the coup leader. I'm speaking about Jean-Jacques Wanda, who is a Congolese analyst. He has Belgian citizenship. He lived in Belgium. He was brought into the Congo by security services as a consultant, and then found himself arrested as plotting a coup against the Congolese government. All the evidence provided does not make any sense. And he's been found guilty, and he's awaiting to be actually killed. So we are all asking ourselves, how come it's very easy for the Congolese government to arrest young thugs, gang members, to arrest Congolese intellectuals and put them on death row? Yet those who are committing the worst crimes, such as the Minister of Finance, Nicole Kazadi, who sold to the Congolese government a well for over $100,000. There is an embezzlement case of over $70 million taken from state coffers, where they were charging for light bulb for streets, $5,000, for wells, $100,000, for these economic crimes, where we know who these people are, where they are, where the crimes are being committed, who they are. None of them are being arrested, tried, and killed. So we're seeing this moratorium being removed as a way to target oppositions. Even when we're speaking about these young thugs that we call kulunas in the Congo, they have been used even by the current regime during protests. In past protests, when young Congolese will protest for having elections, the regime will actually pay these gang members money to go assault protesters. So yesterday, these gang members were allied to the government. Today, they're on death row, and those who are committing economic crimes, they're not being held accountable. So that's a very worrisome trend. As I say, it's not just in Congo. We've seen that in Ukraine. We've seen that in El Salvador, in countries that is used to distract for the inadequacy of the current regime to address the economic problems of the country, the security issues, and the large will of the Congolese people to see a new Congo. So it's a distraction, but we should lift up the names of those who are being arrested unjustly and keep an eye on the situation in the Congo so that people are very clear that as of today, we are still fighting for a new Congo, no matter the challenges, be it from our neighbors, be it from our internal challenges, or be it from the international actors who want to take control of our wealth.
Well, we will do everything we can here to keep eyes on the Congo. As always, Kambale Musavu.
Welcome to the Kim Iverson Show. Thank you so much for being here tonight. So we're going to take a break from the whirlwind of the new Trump administration, and we're going to talk about a story that is just now getting the attention it deserves. The mysterious, untimely death of OpenAI whistleblower Suchir Balaji. Suchir was a 26-year-old AI researcher who worked for OpenAI, which makes ChatGPT, from 2020 until he resigned this past August. He played a crucial role in gathering and organizing internet data used to train GPT-4, the language model behind ChatGPT. And he knew the program really well. He knew what it took to create it. Balaji had grown deeply disillusioned with OpenAI's business practices, which he alleged were ethically dubious and legally questionable. His main concern? That OpenAI's products, including ChatGPT, violated U.S. copyright laws by training on creators' content without authorization, then producing outputs that effectively replaced the original works. Balaji took his findings public in an essay titled, "When Does Generative AI Qualify for Fair Use?" Using mathematical analysis, he concluded that OpenAI's outputs failed the four-factor test for fair use under U.S. copyright law. Basically, creators and news organizations were being stolen from, and it was threatening their livelihoods. In an interview with the New York Times, Suchir stated, "If you believe what I believe, you have to just leave the company," and leave he did. But he didn't stop there. Balaji's whistleblowing opened the floodgates for lawsuits against OpenAI. At the time of his death, Suchir was playing a pivotal role in several high-profile and highly consequential cases, providing expert testimony, and most importantly, when he left the company, he took evidence with him. These lawsuits could completely change the AI game and could cost OpenAI and Microsoft, their main partner and investor, billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. Some of the companies suing OpenAI and Microsoft include several news organizations such as the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, and New York Daily News, a coalition of Canadian media companies such as The Globe and Mail, CBC Radio Canada. Several Asian news organizations have filed suit as well. Numerous authors and artists have accused the companies of theft and have filed suits, including Sarah Silverman, Christopher Golden, and Richard Kadri. The Authors Guild filed a class action lawsuit against OpenAI, alleging the company's technology illegally copied their copyrighted works. And several high-profile authors have joined in on that particular suit, including John Grisham. Suchir's testimony and evidence were in high demand and could prove to be the very testimony and evidence needed to win these suits. Yet suddenly, he was found dead. Police and the medical examiner spent only 40 minutes investigating before ruling his death a suicide. But when you look at the evidence, suicide just doesn't add up. Suchir had just returned from a weekend birthday trip with his buddies. All of his friends say he was happy and there were no signs of distress. He last spoke to his parents, whom we are going to be speaking to here in a moment, on his birthday. But when they didn't hear from their only child after 2 days, they started to grow concerned. At first, Purnima Romero, his mother, thought he might have lost his phone or gone hiking. By Monday, when she still hadn't heard from him, she went to his apartment and knocked on the door, but received no answer. She started calling around to hospitals to see if he had been injured. When none of the local hospitals reported him, she felt a little bit of relief, thinking maybe he was okay after all. But then after not hearing from him for another day, Purnima went to Suchir's apartment, received no answer again, then called the police asking for a welfare check. They made Purnima stand outside the building, and after discovering Suchir's body, the police refused to give Purnima the news. Instead, they told her they needed to call another unit, and more officers arrived, went into the apartment, and came out of the building. And again, when she asked, they refused to tell Purnima the terrible news that her son was dead. It was only when the white coroner's van showed up that Purnima found out. That's how she found out. The van showing up, that her only child was dead. It was then that the coroners told her that there was, in fact, a dead body in the apartment. After a very short investigation of just mere minutes, the police told Purnima that her son had killed himself. They gave her the keys to the apartment, and they told her when she could collect his body from the morgue. And that was it. She told the police her son was a whistleblower and involved in several high-profile cases, but they shrugged her off. She was left with a blood-soaked apartment to clean and a set of keys. But when Purnima went into the apartment and looked around, everything was off. Items were everywhere. Health bars on the floor, clothing on the bed. The closet was a mess. Now, one could write this off as a 26-year-old bachelor not being very tidy, but Purnima has been to Suture's apartment many, many times and insists he was fairly tidy. This was not normal. The apartment looked ransacked. Nothing typical was stolen. His computers and electronics were still there, but Purnima says his portable drive was missing. Then there was the scene of Suture's death. There were several places of unexpected blood that indicate Suture had been perhaps standing or crawling and also sitting, all while bleeding. Blood drops were found in the sink, splatter found on the walls and the door. The trash can was knocked over. There was one AirPod under the sink and one laying in the pool of blood outside the bathroom, as if he was wearing AirPods when he was shot. There was also a piece of a wig. Suture didn't wear a wig, but an attacker trying to mask their identity might. Then there was the autopsy. The police ruled Suture's death a suicide and didn't do an autopsy, so Suture's parents had to hire a private medical examiner on their own, and the findings were astonishing. The trajectory of the bullet was at a downward angle. The bullet entered just above the right eyebrow, and the angle which Suture would have had to have been holding the gun is extremely awkward and not really seen in suicide cases. Not only this, the autopsy revealed an additional injury on the back of Suture's head. Suture had no history of depression. He had never attempted suicide before. His friends and family say there were no signs. And on top of this, there was no note. An only child who talks to his parents nearly every single day didn't leave a note. So when you add all of this up on top of the multiple billion-dollar lawsuits, you see a motive, and it's just unreasonable to conclude in a quick 40-minute investigation that Suture simply killed himself. So the parents have been reaching out to the media, hoping to get enough press on this to pressure the San Francisco police or the FBI to investigate. They luckily were invited onto Tucker Carlson's show, which of course received a huge audience. And that interview was even commented on by Elon Musk, who also is in a lawsuit against OpenAI. During the interview, Tucker texted Congressman Ro Khanna to see if there was anything he could do. So we have joining us tonight Suture Balaji's parents, his mother Purnima, and his father Balaji, to give us an update on what has happened with this investigation since they were on Tucker's show. Purnima, Balaji, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting us.
I am so sorry for your loss. I can't even imagine what the two of you are going through, and also just having to deal with fighting with the authorities to get a proper investigation on top of dealing with the loss is just unfathomable, I think, for many of us. Since your Tucker Carlson interview, which millions of people saw, which is great that you were able to have that kind of a platform, access to that kind of a platform. I know that during the interview, he text messaged Ro Khanna. What has happened since then? Did you hear from Congressman Ro Khanna?
Yes, Ro Khanna contacted us immediately after the Tucker Carlson show. He
great.
promised us to get FBI investigation. He didn't make any promise or cooperation from the state. In fact, Gavin Newsom has been informed as well. We haven't heard from him at all.
So Ro Khanna at least reached out. I know that from the statements that he had issued saying that he won't be able to take congressional action, but he certainly is looking for the FBI, passing information along to the FBI to get a proper investigation done. I've read reports over the last couple of days that the case has been reopened. Is that, where is the investigation at this point?
Investigation has been closed by police on December 30th. We did reach out to the police through our attorney, Phil Kenny. And in response to the deputy chief of police, all he did was he just looked at the CCTV footage and he looked at all the evidence collected by medical examiner. He concluded suicide and he closed it. The reason police are escaping from this is because medical examiner has not released the autopsy report and toxicology report. Until then, they have an umbrella to cover. that it's under investigation. Tomorrow, we're going to the police station directly with the media and our attorney and get the status posted.
So why are we seeing reports that the investigation has been reclassified as opened?
It's just a cover up, another cover up from police. They just give
So
wrong
they're
information.
claiming-
They're out of.
Who gave them that? Who gave that information to the press? Did somebody from the press contact the police and they've said, "Oh, we've
Yes.
reclassified this as open"? That's what they've.
Yes.
But they never contacted you to say the investigation is open. We're going to look into this more.
There's no police report at all because medical examiner closed the case as suicide. There's no police report number. We don't have anything at all that has been open. It's that frustrating and horrible.
Yeah, I would imagine. So there's been no going back to the crime scene to. It's still, when you were on Tucker's show, you'd said that you have left the apartment completely intact, that
Yes.
you haven't touched anything, you haven't cleaned anything, that you're
Right.
wanting an investigator to go in there and actually look at everything again. And
Yes.
that is that still the case?
That's still the
Yes.
case, and we are looking into hiring private investigators. It's been almost 2 months, and police haven't even come to the unit to investigate even once. We wrote to Chief of Police yesterday, gave them all the mistakes or the errors they have made in investigation, all the evidences that have been left out. We'll come to that at the next section. We wrote to that to Chief of Police, Medical Examiner, City Administrator, Executive Director of Medical Examiner. We wrote to all of them yesterday.
So they did a 40-minute investigation and they ruled your son's death a suicide. Did they give you any information as to why they thought it was for sure suicide? I mean, you've been pressing them. It's been 2 months. You've been talking to them. What do they say to you every time you call or go down to the police station? Do they just say, "Ma'am, case closed"? I mean, what do they, or do they give you, "Look, this is more evidence that leads us to believe it was suicide"? Do they give you any information?
Nothing new, absolutely nothing new has been considered since the crime scene when the body was picked up. Only thing they told us, I think, number one, my son bought the gun for self-defense a year ago. They said, gun belonged to your son. We saw the CCTV footage. Nobody went inside. Nobody came out of the building. He was all by himself, so he shot himself. That's all they said. Seriously. Nothing has
Okay.
changed in this statement.
Okay, so let's start with the gun. At the crime scene, there was the gun case and a certificate that wasn't a purchase certificate. It was a request to whatever the process is. So it was like an application, I believe. What was that? What was the certificate exactly that was found?
Yeah, the certificate says it's still waiting for approval. It doesn't show actually the gun actually was authorized to my son. But what's missing there is a bullet in the gun box itself. We're still looking at how many bullets the case have and how many has been picked up by police. There itself we have some kind of evidence that they have not used my son's gun to shoot him. He's been shot.
Right. But since the crime scene, since his death, did they run the serial number of the gun and then they came back to you and said, "We know for sure he purchased this gun, that this was his gun"?
They have not done anything. In fact, we have put in a spoliation request to medical examiner asking them to preserve his toxicology parts because we don't trust anything coming from them. We do have evidence. We're waiting for the right time to release it to the court.
If you can't remember the last time you slept all night or didn't feel stressed during the day, you need to hear about CBD from CB Distillery. They've got natural solutions for sleep and stress that people can't stop raving about. Check out some of their 48,000 five-star reviews, like "the best sleep I've gotten in years," or "I wake up feeling refreshed and ready to go." And it's not just sleep. They have plant-based solutions to help with stress, mood, and focus, even pain after exercise. I personally really like the sleep products. I have a really hard time sleeping, and CBD from CB Distillery really helps a lot. I even have many of my family members and friends using CB Distillery sleep products as well. Look, there's a lot of CBD out there, but I trust CB Distillery for their commitment to quality. Their products are all made with high quality, clean ingredients. That's why they have over 2 million satisfied customers and offer a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're still struggling with sleep, stress, or other health concerns, maybe it's time to try something different. CBD from CB Distillery. And I've got a 20% discount to get you started. Visit cbdistillery.com and use code Kim for 20% off. That's cbdistillery.com. Code Kim, cbdistillery.com. Thanks for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show. If you want to watch the full
coordinates in Google Earth or Google Maps, it'll take you to this area in Los Angeles where you will see a lot of words. This location is the Union Pacific Railway, and one of the words that was repeated was the word help. Now, there were other words, there were other phrases like corrupt LAPD and human traffic, but the main word that was repeated was the word help. As of right now, we really have no idea what this could be, but there are some ideas, there are some theories. Some people do believe this could be the work of teenagers doing a prank. This could be a homeless man who may be mentally unwell, or this could even be an art project. Some people do believe that this could be a distraction altogether. None of these are outside the realm of possibility. All these are indeed possible. But again, we do have a very bad trafficking problem here in the United States and also all around the world. And as I said in that previous video, this is LA we're talking about. And LA is notoriously known for tunnels. Some people are saying that why not get the LAPD involved? Why not get the police involved? And again, but right next to there is a LAPD airport. So one would think they would have seen this from above. And that's only if you really do trust the LAPD. But what I do find interesting is that this is not the only location that the word help and other words that may be connected to this has appeared. There are videos out there where people are driving through Los Angeles and they do see something very similar to this. For example, this individual on TikTok, Wonder Ledesma, who was driving through LA and saw this.
Yo, what's up guys? Wonder here, Fishmasters crew. There's this really weird sign off the freeway where you're going from the 101 south, turns into the 10. I've been noticing lately, it's like those runoff rolls of stuff that the city puts out. The other day, it looked like it said 911, so I was like, that's weird. Somebody probably put it, I don't know, if they need help or something. And right now, actually, I got off the freeway so I can go see where this house is or what. Right now, it says help. Like, literally says H-E-L-P. So I'm hoping I can kind of pinpoint the house and call the police and let them know that there's a sign for help. Literally. It's fucking weird. So I'm coming up right here. Look, it says help. That says help.
This individual uploaded this video to TikTok on December 23rd, 2023, and this date is going to be very important to remember for later on in this video.
Location of help signs, part 2.
All these people, it's almost traffic hour, 3 o'clock-ish. And 101, 10 East. Check it out. It's right in front, right there. Huge. Actually, there's 2. Help and help. I didn't see that one. So that's where it's at, right when you get on the 10 from the 101. Pretty crazy.
Now, I do find it interesting that he says the 101 because there's another video that another individual had captured which shows a billboard with the words help and FBI, but you will also see the number 101. So as you can see right here, it says FBI Alyssa missing 101, help. So maybe somebody went missing, this Alyssa person on the 101. Maybe multiple people went missing on the 101. The 101 could be a hotbed of human trafficking, and this person is trying to get the attention of the FBI, the LAPD, and they are not listening. And so he thinks that the LAPD are corrupt, he or she, whoever this is. So I did go ahead and look this up further, and there was an individual who did go missing, a child, back in 2023 in Woodland Hills, California, a neighborhood in Los Angeles. And if this is indeed the person, then this matches when all these help signs went up, because these help signs went up in 2023. And this child, Alyssa Osvath, she went missing on October 18th, 2023. Matter of fact, Alyssa Osvath is on the Facebook page for missing persons, cold cases, and human trafficking. And if you go back to that yard where we saw all those missing signs, you will see where it says human trafficking. So this could be some kind of connection here. I cannot find any information on Alyssa Osvath being found, and I'm not saying that this missing child is connected to any of this. All I'm saying is that if this child did indeed go missing, and whoever was related to this child, perhaps a parent or somebody else altogether, and they felt like they were not getting any help from the LAPD or other law enforcement agencies, other organizations, then they will do all they can to bring attention to this missing person's case. I am not familiar with California or Los Angeles, so I put in what highway is next to Woodland Hills, and what came back was that the highways that run near Woodland Hills, California, are US 101, Expressway 101. And again, we saw that on the billboard there. Alyssa missing 101, and the date does match, 2023. I do believe this is what we're looking at here. We have a person that's trying to get attention to unsolved missing persons cases, and they may believe that human trafficking may be involved. And this is not the only individual, because again, if you go back to that area, you'll see other names. And I also saw a Janice. Going back to the original location where all those words were seen, help and so forth, I don't believe trafficking is taking place specifically here. It might, and I do believe this place should be investigated, but I do believe the purpose of this is to get the attention of the Los Angeles Police Air Support Division, which is close by. Because if you really think about it, if trafficking was taking place in this specific location, I don't think a person would have all the time to put all this together. I think this is just a way to get the attention of the LAPD. Now, again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that something shady is not taking place in this location. I'm just theorizing here. This place should really be investigated to the fullest. Because here's what proves my point even further. In this location, the number 101 appears again. If you look under this help here, you will see 101, help 101. So something is going down on Expressway 101. Now, I actually found some interesting articles when it comes to Expressway or Highway 101 in California, like this article here by the Santa Barbara Independent. This article is titled, Santa Barbara, a Hub for Human Trafficking. Authorities report an increasing number of victims. This article goes on to say that California has the highest number of human trafficking cases in the United States, with San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco labeled by the FBI as cities with high-intensity child trafficking. While Santa Barbara isn't among the top 10, its position along Highway 101 between major cities makes it a hub for trafficking, according to the agency. A large majority of victims found in the county are children, so many identified so frequently that a safe house has been created for them. This highway sounds like really bad news. There's even another article back on November 11th, 2024, that is titled, Decomposing Body Found Off 101 Freeway in Hollywood Hills. Look at this article here by the Mendocino Voice. Men accused of human trafficking were driving family to work on cannabis farm per attorney. 3 men publicly accused by the California Highway Patrol of trafficking children for the purpose of forced labor at a marijuana cultivation site this August were actually taking family members to work. And it goes on to talk about how these 3 individuals were arrested on Highway 101 on August 7th. Now, again, I know there's some people out there that just want to easily blow this off as teenagers doing a prank or some type of artwork or some type of mentally unwell person. But if you do a little research, you will find that somebody may be bringing attention to the Expressway 101, maybe bringing attention to many of these missing person cases, many of them being children that are still unresolved today. And the LAPD, the FBI, and so forth, whoever investigates missing persons reports, have given up. They are not helping. So they are bringing attention to this. There are many articles that talk about Expressway 101 being connected to trafficking, like this other article here from the Houstonian that is titled "The Truth About Human Trafficking in South Los Angeles County." And it goes back to May 12, 2021. They even show a photo of the 101. The beginning of this article says that the Cuesta College North County campus is located in San Luis Obispo County. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Positioned in the small town of Paso Robles, California, only miles away from Highway 101 and Highway 46. This area has been called a natural corridor for trafficking. There are many articles online that says how the 101 is a hotbed for trafficking. So again, I do believe this is what we're looking at here, but what I'm saying is not definite. And I still do believe that location and other locations should be taken seriously and investigated. What an evil world we live in. And it's just really sad when you always hear that children in one way, shape, or form are involved. But in any case, thank you.
Kofi, follow me.